Hello, and you're listening to Your Majesty's Secret Podcast. I like my podcast shaken, not stirred. Only on the Four-Eyed Radio Network. If you'd like to check out more shows, go to foureyedradio.com.
Hey there, Eric here from Socially Awkward Studios, and this Four-Eyed Radio presentation is being proudly brought to you by Raven Designs, illustration and design that fit your personality. For samples and inquiries, visit ravencruise.com.
Bond. James Bond. Shaken, not stirred.
Utter one more syllable and I'll have you killed.
I thought Christmas only comes once a year.
For your eyes only, darling.
I never joke about my web 007.
For England, James?
Come in, Univex. James Bond here.
Am I going to have a problem with you, Bond?
Allow me to introduce myself.
You're that secret agent! That English secret agent from England!
No, you're cleverer than you look.
Still better than looking cleverer than you are.
My God, what's Bond doing?
I think he's attempting re-entry, sir.
007 reporting for duty.
Hello, the name's Berkeley, Ziggy Berkeley, from Cinema on the Rocks, and with me is Eric Dewey from Socially Awkward Studios, and you are listening to Her Majesty's Secret Podcast, where we discuss all things James Bond 007, only on the Four-Eyed Radio Network. And today, we're going to be talking about the art of 007, specifically the poster art. Now, this is an episode I have been looking forward to for a long time. One of the first ones I was hoping to do once we started doing the list episodes, because as a lifelong movie poster collector, this is a subject that is near and dear to my own heart.
Oh, absolutely. No, the artwork is fantastic, and being able to go through and do an entire listing and going through and really some of these posters I was seeing for the first time, some of the international ones especially that we took a look at, and although we did not include those necessarily in our list, just seeing them was really cool, and a lot of memories too, especially when we got into the ones that were in the 80s and 90s. I remember actually seeing some of those posters up and such. So it was really a cool trip down memory lane in some of those cases, and then comparing and contrasting them to the 60s and 70s posters and the newer posters of the 2000s. It's really just fun and cool. So this ought to be a good one, and hopefully everybody else enjoys it as much as we do. I know this one is a very visual episode for a audio production, but we're going to try to do our best. If you're listening to this show anywhere other than HerMajestiesPod.com, if you go to HerMajestiesPod.com, you will find a link on this episode page to a listing of all the pictures of the posters that we're going to be talking about today. So if you're listening on Stitcher or iTunes or Spreaker or any of those other places, please just visit HerMajestiesPod.com, click on this episode link, and you will see a link to see all of the pictures of the posters that we're talking about so that you can really see what we're seeing as well.
And the other option that you have, in fact, this is what we chose to do because, of course, there is a lot of art out there.
Yes.
And we wanted to make sure that we were going with official art actually used, and we narrowed it down a little bit more because you can go out onto the internet and say, okay, I want to see a poster for Skyfall. You'll see a ton of posters for Skyfall, and most of them will not have been made by MGM or Eon or been approved, whatever, because there's a lot of fan art there. And fan art is cool. I'm totally good with that. However, that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about the official, actual posters that were released for the film. And what we decided to narrow it down to were only posters where the language used was English. We appreciate our international fans, but we had to narrow it down somehow. And we also chose very specific formats used for theatrical presentation. So what we went with were US one-sheets, UK quads, and international English language posters, which are usually made also as one-sheets. Now, if you want to know what those things mean, a one-sheet poster is standardized at roughly 27 by 41 inches. There's a little bit of variation between 27 by 40, 70 by 100 centimeters, but it's real close to that. And they're oriented in a portrait-style fashion, so they are longer than they are wide.
Yes.
Now, a UK quad is basically that same size turned sideways. So it's more of a landscape style. So it's more of a 100 centimeters across, 70 centimeters down, or 41 by 27. Basically, roughly that size. These are the standard theatrical presentations. And most international release posters, at least of the past couple decades, have gone with the one-sheet style just so that things are pretty standard across the board.
Right.
So those are the terms we're going to be using when we describe the posters. Like, for example, U.S. one-sheet style A would mean that it was the one-sheet size poster meant for U.S. release, and if there were multiple styles, they're usually marked officially as A, B, C, D, and so on. And the source material that we chose so that we were all looking in the same place, and this is something that you can get as well. In fact, we suggest that you do. It's a really, really awesome book.
Yes, it is.
It's a book that was edited by Dennis Gassner, who was a production designer from Quantum of Solace onward, and it's called James Bond, 50 Years of Movie Posters. And that was published right around the release of Skyfall. And it has a massive collection of posters starting from Dr. No and going all the way through all of the Eon films, and they include both the parody Casino Royale and Never Say Never Again as well. Mm-hmm. And they go up through one of the advanced posters for Skyfall.
Yes.
They stop their total listing at Quantum of Solace, but still. And there is a lot more art in there than we're going to be covering. They have the U.S. releases, they have the U.K. releases, they have international releases, and then they have the foreign language releases, which go into a whole new level of art. Like the Japanese posters especially, and the German ones are often phenomenal. Oftentimes, instead of just changing languages out, they will use totally different art, especially earlier on.
Yes.
Posters tend to get a little bit more homogenized toward the past decade and a half, but especially in the 60s, wow, just the amount of art is amazing.
Yes. This book is 316 some pages, just packed full of amazing artwork and really a little bit of cool trivia on some of them. You know, you actually has descriptions on a lot of these posters as to who did the art, what they were going for when they did it. You know, more than just the pictures. It really is worth having this book. And again, if you're listening to this anywhere other than Her Majesty's Pod, just shoot on over to hermajestyspod.com. There will be a link directly to the Amazon listing of this book right there in the posting for this episode. So you can go and take a look at it and find out if it's available, and you can purchase this book for yourself if you want it, because I think you do. You want this book, trust me.
If you do that, you'll also be helping us out because we get a small amount of commission on that. Now, you don't get charged any more money for it. It's just we get a little kickback, and hey, it keeps the show free for you.
A little taste, yeah. And even if you don't want this book, feel free to visit hermajestyspod.com, click on that Amazon banner we've got on the front page there, and just shop for whatever you normally would. And that helps us out here at the at Her Majesty's Pod and the Fern in general. So please do that.
That's like I say, awesome book. 11 by 14, so it's huge. I mean, the thing weighs a ton.
Yeah, this book actually doubles as a personal safety device. You will not be attacked while carrying this book because you can whack an assailant over the head with this and put them out of commission for quite some time. So
I don't suggest you do that, though, because it's a very lovely book and you wouldn't want to ruin it.
Yeah, only emergency situations, of course.
And for any of you who do have the book handy, as we read along our choices on our list, we will also be mentioning the page number in the book where you can find it.
Absolutely.
And occasionally you may hear one or the other of us turning pages in the background because, as we've noted on all of our list episodes, Eric and I actually live quite a distance apart. We have not discussed our list beforehand, so he doesn't know what's on mine. I don't know what's on his. And the way that we decided to do this time around, using that book as our source material, and that book again is James Bond, 50 Years of Movie Posters, edited by Dennis Gassner, we went through all 23 of the official Eon productions, so from Dr. No to Skyfall, and because we've included it on all of our other lists, we've also included Never Say Never Again, the the Mr. McClory one-off. Blanking on his first name. Sorry about that. Oh, well. But, no,
he doesn't deserve a first name.
He had a point the first time around.
That is
just
true.
Not the fourth, fifth, and sixth times.
Yeah, it's just, talk about beating a dead horse. I mean, come on, guys.
Kevin McClory, by the way.
There it is. Yeah, that sound. I was like, I know it's not Dennis, but I couldn't think of it either, so I wasn't going to say anything.
It's that E and I sound. No.
There you go.
But we went through all of those movies, and we each chose one poster that fit the criteria I've already mentioned. So English language, either a one sheet, a quad, or an international, and we can use teaser, advance, or regular release. No home video, no character poster. So I'll give you a spoiler here. I couldn't cheat and say the best poster for Die Another Day was the Miranda Frost poster. Damn. And then we picked one for each film to say that was the best poster within those criteria for that film.
Yes.
And then we went on and rated from 24 to 1. But then we took also from each film one poster that we thought was the worst representative of that film.
Mm-hmm.
And then we made a separate list, which we're going to read the bottom 7 worst posters based on those criteria.
Yes.
So you can conceivably have a best and a worst poster from the same movie making each of these lists.
Absolutely.
In fact, you're going to.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of just what's the best movie. This is a matter of how does the art grab us? So
Right.
This is going to be very, very subjective.
Right.
This is going to be how well does it represent the film? How well does it represent its era? And so on and so forth. Eric had a usual plethora of math problems he went through. I, as usual, winged it. However, I do have a fairly decent background in art history, so... and
You're
like I said, I've been collecting movie posters for a very long time.
You're winging it probably best my calculated efforts anyway. But no, I ranked them based on, I went through each poster, and first of all, I picked my favorite just visually, essentially. I looked through all the posters, and I said, this is the one that I like the most. And then to rank them, I went through and I ranked each one of them. I gave them a score based on their bondinosity, my favorite term whatsoever. I rated them on their impact to me specifically, like how much does this poster grab my eye and say, look at me. I ranked them also on their portrayal of the film. Does it actually fit the film, basically? Does it give you an inkling of what might be happening in the film without giving it completely away? And then I ranked it just straight on visual appeal, like how pleasing is it to my eye? And of course that is my eye we're talking about. This is probably going to be one of the most subjective lists. All of our lists are subjective, of course, but this is probably going to be one of the most subjective because it really is just how pretty do I think the poster is. So that's what I ranked them on, and then I gave them scores for all of those categories, and then I listed them out in the order, and then I tweaked them to make sure that I liked the list. So I didn't just rely solely on the math, but ultimately it did come down pretty much to that. So
I think for both of us, it's fair to say that this episode has involved more prep than any other episode we've ever done. This has basically been about a month's preparation for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we hope you enjoy it.
Going through all of these posters, but it was wonderful prep. It was absolutely brilliant to go through and look at all these posters. Especially, I went through the book probably a half a dozen times before I even started my actual list. And flipping through, like I went through, just flipped through, look at all the pictures, and then I went through and actually read the captions on every single poster, and then I went back through again and just flipped through again, and I did that several times before actually even sitting down to say, okay, now I'm going to make my list. So it was a lot of prep, a lot of work, but it was wonderful. So I don't begrudge doing that additional work in any way.
So, without any further ado, we're going to go a little bit different than we usually do. We're going to give you our best list first. And we decided to do that mainly because in order to tell you why we think some of the ones we call the worst were the worst, we have to compare them to some of the best.
Yes.
And so rather than give that store away, we decided to do this first. And we also got some input from a guest commentator on one of these posters. Eric, why don't you tell us?
Yes, we asked our wonderful sponsor from Raven Designs, Raven Cruz, who is an artist and a graphic designer. So if anything, this is right in her wheelhouse. In fact, she has made several. We met Raven because she had done some beautiful minimalistic posters of various different movies. So she has a very, very keen eye for poster art. She has a very, very, just an enormous amount of talent when it comes to representing an entire story in a single picture, which is exactly what a movie poster is supposed to do. So we asked her what her favorite Bond poster ever was and what her least favorite Bond poster ever was, and she was kind enough to give us those answers and a brief explanation as to why she likes those particular movies. So do we want to start with her favorite or with her least favorite?
We'll start with her favorite since that's how we're going to start.
Okay. The one that she picked as her favorite is from Live and Let Die. It's I believe this is actually the UK quad version because it is a landscape picture. She just sent me the picture, so I don't know. Unfortunately, she didn't have.
Yeah, that looks like. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Eric has sent this to me over message, so I can follow along. Yeah, that's the quad.
Yeah, so this is the UK quad version of the Live and Let Die poster, and she points out, and I will read her quote here. She said, "This Roger Moore poster is my favorite. All the imagery works together as one and the colors just pop. My favorite image within this are the playing cards and how each one is a different woman. Even the typography looks amazing. Sans serif with the 007 going vertical from his name and the knife as part of the title. Pure genius." So, and I have to agree. I love this poster as well. In fact, we'll talk about it a little bit more, a little bit later in the show. I don't know if...
Yeah, I think we'll be talking about this poster quite a bit later in the show.
Yes, exactly. So thank you very much, Raven, for that. Do we want to read her worst right now, or do we want to lead off our worst?
Let's save it for when we read ours.
We'll read. We'll go back to Raven when we get to our worst list for her pick for worst. So thank you very much, Raven. We really appreciate that. And of course, if you guys out there in the internet land need any graphic design done, go check out ravencruise.com, our fabulous sponsor here on the 4-Eyed Radio Network. She does amazing work, so go check it out.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Dewey, what did you choose for your number 24 on our best Bond posters list?
Now, my number 24, this is, of course, my least favorite of my favorites. And now this one is from a movie we love to diss on, and for good reason, I think. The poster that I picked as my favorite of this one, this is from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And it is the U.S. one-sheet style A. You'll find that on page 112 of the James Bond 50 Years of Movie Posters book. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't really like this poster very much, but I do like it the most of the On Her Majesty's Secret Service posters. And I like it specifically because they really went with the, we're not going to show this guy's face. We're going to make a picture that shows that it already has his face obscured in darkness, and then we're going to put words on top of it as well, because we really don't want you to focus on this guy. Please focus on these girls and the fact that it's a Bond movie. And that's, I think, the best thing they could have done for that movie is to distract attention away from Lazenby as much as possible. Honestly, if they had used it, there's a concept poster in this book as well, that if they had used that one, it would easily have been my favorite and would probably have ranked very much higher, because I really, really like what they did with it. And you can find that one on page 124 of the book. That one is fantastic. That's the one I would have picked had they used it. But of the ones they actually used, this one is my favorite. But that is not to say that I consider it a good poster. I really actually don't like this one very much. I just didn't really like any of the On Her Majesty's Secret Service posters.
I will agree with your last sentence, and then I will severely question your judgment.
All right, okay.
Our regular listeners will understand this phrase very well. They know all the things it can mean.
I have a feeling this poster is going to turn up much later in the episode. But okay. So what did you have at your number 24 spot then?
See, I almost thought, and this is going to be very close to impossible. In fact, if I'm going to predict things right now, I think that maybe we'll hit on the same exact poster twice in this entire list. And when you started saying this is a movie we like to diss, I'm like, oh, did we actually have one in common? But apparently not, at least not in the same place. This is that other movie we like to diss a whole lot. I went with From Die Another Day, the U.S. one-sheet advanced style A, which is on page 262 of the book. And what that is, it's just a melting ice cube with a gun with a silencer on it, and the words Die Another Day on top, and the 007 symbol below that. That's all it is. That is the best thing that I could find out of the entire art collection for Die Another Day. It makes me the least angry.
I do somewhat agree. I actually, this one ended up a little bit higher on my list. We'll talk about it later. I think it's on page 282 of the book, if you're following along. Hopefully we got the same version of the book.
Did I? Oh, typo. Sorry.
No problem. I was looking, I was like, wait a minute, that's not even the Die Another Day section. No, this is on 282. And yes, I actually do like this poster quite a bit. And part of it is because it does not feature any of the actors from that movie. And I do like the imagery of it. It tells you enough about the movie. You know you're going to be dealing with Bond fighting with something to do with ice. That's all you need to know. It's a movie, hey, 007, you know it's Bond. You see a silenced Beretta. Those of you who know guns will notice that it's a Beretta. You can clearly see the Beretta logo on the hand grip. And, it's smoking from the barrel, which, by the way, silencers, when you use a suppressor, you don't usually get smoke out of the barrel, but, okay. But anyway.
It's hot. It's melting
But it's hot. It's melting the ice block. So you're seeing that Bond is going to triumph over some sort of ice villain. And so it tells you enough about the movie, and it is impactful. This one, when I was rating my impact, this one got a very high impact rating because it does. You look at it, you're like, oh, look at that. It's a gun. It's ice. Okay, what's this movie about? So I agree that this is the best pick from Die Another Day.
For me, it's the best from Die Another Day, but it's not a good poster. And the reason I say that is if you take the words Die Another Day and the 007 symbol off of that, this could be for anything. This could be for the Bourne Identity. This could be, assuming you hadn't seen it before and therefore, ice might have been relevant to it. You didn't know. Because it's an advanced poster. No one's seen the movie yet. This could be for the Bourne Identity. This could be for a Liam Neeson movie. This could be for frickin' anything. It has zero Bondinessosity to me. And especially since I don't usually picture Bond having a silencer on his gun. I know it's shown in several posters, but it just doesn't strike me as right. So while to me this is the best of the available Die Another Day art, it is the worst of the best of the Bond posters. And considering some of the stuff I don't like that's coming up, that's saying something.
Wow. Now, I agree it would have been better. It would have been better to me if they had done the exact same thing, except replace the Beretta with a Walther and lose the silencer. If you had a hot Walther melting the ice cube, you would get that Bondness immediately without having to have the 007 and Die Another Day listed on the poster. But again, that's also something that not everybody would catch, because not everybody's even going to look at this and say, oh, that's a Beretta. I do, because I recognize that that's quite obviously a Beretta. Anybody who's seen a Beretta will recognize that it is. Berettas are very, very unique styled weapons, much like Glocks. You see a Glock once, you know when you see a Glock from that point forward. And most people probably wouldn't recognize the Walther, but Bond fans would. So they could have done that and made it a little bit better. And I do agree, the silencer, it kind of loses something when it's not in his hand. I don't mind it so much when it's in his hand, but it does lose a little something when it's not actually in Bond's hand.
So that's my choice for number 24.
All right. Well, moving on to number 23, what did you have just barely above this one?
What I had just barely above that one is the UK quad from License to Kill from page 237 of the book. And I look at this and I wonder if the interns just got a chance to go at it. I mean, this is just, it's Photoshop and clip art vomit all over the place.
Are you sure we're doing the best list?
This is the best out of the License to Kill ones, yes. See, this is another one where I really like the movie. I don't like any of the posters associated with License to Kill.
All I'm going to say is that I severely question your judgment, sir.
Fair enough. I don't like any of the posters associated with this movie, so it's hard for me to pick
I can agree with that. I can absolutely agree with that.
But what you've basically got is, you can tell there were just little photo elements that they just cut and pasted like little color forms. Mm-hmm. You have Timothy Dalton running off to the left side. You have this pithy marketing thing, James Bond is out for revenge. And then you have one photo of the crash sequence, and then you have Sanchez and the two girls, and you have this ocean front and the 007 symbol just pasted right across. It's crap. The layout is terrible.
It absolutely is. I completely agree with that.
If I ever tried to turn this in an art class, I would have just had this thrown back at me and said, "What do you think you're doing? No, start over." I mean, I am floored that a marketing department thought that this was a good poster, especially in such a storied series as the Bond series. This is just terrible. But at the very least, you see James Bond in it.
Yes, you do.
You see some of the characters in it, so it's got more Bondinessosity than the Die Another Day one.
Okay. Well, I will agree with everything bad you said about the poster. Like I said, I will severely question your judgment, and I will tell you more about what I think about this poster much, much later in the show. There are some very specific things about this poster that bug me, and I'll get to it when we get there. In the meantime, for my number 23, all you have to do is flip one page over and look at page 239 in your book. I actually chose License to Kill at my 23 spot as well, but my favorite of these horrible posters, because all of them were bad. There was not a good poster for this movie, and that may be, part of why even though it's a good movie, it's a good movie. Maybe it didn't do quite as well as it could have because these posters were atrocious. But the one I picked was the U.S. Advance, which you'll see at the top left-hand corner of page 239 in the James Bond 50 Years of Movie Posters book. This is one with it's just Timothy Dalton holding his Walther, tuxedo shirt with the tie undone, just looking Bondy. And that is honestly the best thing I can say about it, is it's just Timothy Dalton looking Bondy. And, that's that's the best they were able to come up with.
That.
That's the best they were able to come up with.
The reason that I didn't pick it is because it could have been Timothy Dalton looking Bondy for anything. And even though the UK quad that I picked was loaded with vomit, it was vomit that was specific to this movie. And that was the tipping point for me.
Yeah, I went with this one.
Specific vomit.
Because it didn't hurt, it didn't accost my eyes like the other one did. So I had to pick this one. Now I'm very glad that they didn't go with the concept version, because the concept version has him holding this ridiculous weapon that is so un-Bond-like. Yes, it was in the movie, but that doesn't mean that it's something that we should see in the poster, because it doesn't make any sense in this concept. But no, with just Dalton holding the Walther and wearing a tux, that gives me enough Bondinessosity for this one to be the one of the, the best of the worst for this particular film, basically.
And I do not question your judgment. I understand. Like I said, the reason I didn't go there is just it was a hair thing, where it was just, okay, none of these posters are good, but this one at least is more specific to this film. But I understand yours is actually nicer to look at, so I totally get it.
All right.
But what do you have at number 22, sir?
Moving to number 22, if you're following along in the book, flip over to page 206 to 207, and you will see the poster from the UK quad from Never Say Never Again. This is another movie that I like to poke a lot of fun at, and another one where I didn't really like, per se, any of the posters for this movie. This one was the least offensive to me. And it's not a bad poster. There are some bad things about it. There are some things I really don't like about it. But it's not as horrible. It has a lot going on. You get a lot of action. You get a lot of bits of the movie in this poster. And that's good because they actually do it in a good way. It's not cluttered in a bad way. It's actually cluttered in a good way. It's focused. You can move, you can progress from one bit of imagery to the next fairly easily without, it doesn't just vomit all over your face with action. What I don't like about it, the look on Bond's face, on Connery's face in this picture, it just isn't right. And something about it, I can't even pinpoint it. He's got this weird, sexy smirk going on, but he's pointing the gun at you. And it's not like the smirk of, it doesn't scream, haha, I caught you. And it's not a mad face like, haha, I'm going to shoot you. It's just like this, I'm going to sleep with you, but I'm going to shoot you first. And that's just weird. So I just don't like his face. If he didn't have the gun, the face would be fine. Because I'm like, oh, it's Sean Connery looking sexy, even though he's looking really old. But this also was the one poster where they seemed to have made the most effort to de-age him a little bit. Some of the other posters for this film, they made no effort whatsoever. And some of the international ones, this is where we get into, I love some of the Japanese posters from some of the other movies. I absolutely hate the Japanese posters for Never Say Never Again. If anything, they make him look older than he actually was when he filmed the movie. And it is just
one
bad.
Might speculate that after what he said to the Japanese people after filming You Only Live Twice, they might have a grudge. I don't know. Might be wrong, but
they're like, oh, look, this old guy is back. Let's show the world how old he is. So this one, I like this one primarily because, like I said, it does have the action sequences. You get a lot of action and art in this picture, but it's done in a way where your eye can naturally move from one to the next without hurting. It's not like that the poster from License to Kill where it's just like, here, look at everything at once. And then I do like the font that they use. This is the one that actually uses the wavy Never Say Never Again font that fits one word into the next on top of each other. I don't even know what to call that, but see, I wish Raven picked this one because I'm sure she had a name for this. But
it's kind of a fishy font.
Yeah, it's a fishy font. It's kind of fishy. It's reminiscent of the sharks. You get to know, hey, look, hey, all right. And so I like that better than some of the other posters that did not use that. So that's why it's my pick for number 22.
Hold that thought. My pick for number 22 is from another one of those movies where I do not like a single poster from this movie at all. However, since I had to pick one to say that it was the best of this movie, I went with the UK quad from Quantum of Solace, which is on page 307 of the book. And basically, it's dull. It's brown. It's really brown. It is a haggard Daniel Craig and a haggard Olga Kurylenko walking away from the burning ruins of what someone who has seen the movie since will know is the Palace de las Dunas. That's it. It's just those two walking across brown in the desert with the words Quantum of Solace and the credits off to the left, and it's just boring. Absolutely, positively boring.
I completely agree with all the bad things that you are saying about this poster. It is... Yeah, you're right. There weren't a lot of good posters for Quantum of Solace. I did pick a different one, and in fact, the one that I picked actually made it quite a bit higher on my list because I actually really liked the one that I did pick. But this one is the one that I picked actually as the one I liked the least from Quantum of Solace. Now, it didn't make my top 7 worst of list because there are much worse posters. Yeah, like you said, first of all, if you haven't seen the movie, you have no idea what's burning in the background. And so that whole imagery is completely lost. As a poster to get you to watch the movie, all you see is brown. And then there's like, oh, there's a little smoke. Oh, if you follow the smoke, you can see, oh, look, something's burning. So there must have been some action at some point. That needed to be more in the foreground. If you're going to show off some action from the movie, let me see some more burning stuff. And then, yes, I actually like Daniel Craig in this poster because you do see the haggard Bond that you see at the end of that film, and that's fine. I'm okay with that because you get to see, okay, he's going to be through some stuff in this movie. All right. But you have no idea who she is. She's got no storyline here. There's nothing. She's looking off into the distance. The look on her face, it could be indifference or it could be boredom, but it doesn't scream. I think she's going for serious, but that's not what I'm seeing. So,
what it almost looks like, all you have to do is change their faces to Steve Carell and Tina Fey, and you have that movie about a bad date.
Yeah, they're looking completely opposite directions. Neither one of them look happy, except for the part where they're, except for the fact that they're like dirty and scuffed up and you can tell they've been through something. They could just be on a bad date. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and the two things that work in this poster's favor for me, which brought it as my favorite of a crop of posters I don't like. One, at least it relates to the movie specifically, even though you won't understand it until you've seen the movie. It does relate specifically to the movie. And as happens in many of these posters, it's a device that I just think is kind of cool. Whenever they have a chance, you'll notice this in many Bond posters across the years. They work in the 007 symbol into the title of the film. Mm-hmm. And they do that again with the Quantum of Solace title. So I like that. I
absolutely love when they do that. In fact, that's why I forced that into our logo on the Her Majesty's podcast, Her Majesty's Secret Podcast website with the 007 going through the O in podcast. I didn't have 2 O's to work with, unfortunately, that worked well, so I had to just use the one, but I did it anyway because I'm like...
It works.
Because I do love that imagery as well. I do like when they do that, so absolutely.
So that's my number 22. And moving on to number 21, it's the Never Say Never Again UK quad that Eric was just talking about in his number 22.
It's really the best that you can pull from that movie.
I agree with everything you said about it. I'm reading his look as kind of smarmy. One thing that I do like about it, along with what you said, and it's collage vomit, but it's collage vomit that you can go from one thing to another and your eyes don't feel like they're being assaulted, at least not until you see Connery smarmily pointing the gun at you.
You're like, what? I don't understand that look. I don't know if I should be scared or really scared.
It's almost, you can imagine it being the look where he's slept with a henchwoman and now is going to shoot her. But like, one thing that I like is that even though I can't exactly call it portraiture, at least the two girls on it reasonably resemble the Bond girls from the film, even though they're not quite right.
Yeah.
And Connery looks like Connery, looks like old Connery, but he looks like Connery. I don't really like the car driving off the side into the credits on the bottom. It just looks kind of goofy. It looks almost like child art at that point. But I do like the little fishy font, and the other posters for this movie are just really, really, really dull. Yes. Especially the blue US 1 sheet, where you just have the pencil drawing of Kim Basinger and her tugs, and it's just the dullest thing they could come up with. It's like and it is, in fact, what used to be the VHS cover for it as well when it first came out on video. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing, just to go on a side rant here, with poster art, I think that many times the home video market really drops the ball on this. They either pick the shittiest art they could find out of all the posters that were released, or they don't even go with poster art. They just take one still photo from the movie and throw it on the cover of the Blu-ray or VHS or DVD, and they call it a day. Home video box art is generally terrible, and I just don't understand it. I think it's really, really lazy. And when you see the home video art for Never Say Never Again, the original home video art was the US 1 sheet, which is just blah, whereas at least his quad has some life to it. So as a best of I agree with Eric. He had it number 22, I have it number 21. Close enough.
There you go.
So what did you have, sir?
At my number 21, I had if you want to turn to page 152 and 153 of your book, that is The Man with the Golden Gun, the UK quad version specifically. This was another one where it really came down to I didn't really dig any of these posters. None of them were really great. In fact, one of them was so awful we'll be talking about it later. But I bet we're going to have some really, really interesting discussions with our worst list. I'm just calling that one out right now. So this one here, it's another collage vomit, as you would say. There's way too much going on. And even though there's way too much going on, you end up with a couple of spaces of white space that are completely unnecessary. Like, with all of this stuff going on, why didn't you use some of that space? And so it draws your eye away from the action and up, and yes, it does draw your eye up, and then you see, oh, look at the car's doing the jump. Okay, cool. That part was cool. But first you're like, oh, there's so much going on over here, I'm going to look away. And then you look up to Bond's face and you just see white up there. I think they could have spread this action out a little bit better. But what you do have in here that's good is you do have some really cool drawings of a lot of the stuff that happens in the movie. Obviously, you have the golden gun, you have the golden bullet with 007 etched on it, even though they have it etched on the casing, not on the bullet itself. But anyways, you have Bond holding his gun, doing his normal Bond one arm crossed, one arm with the gun up type thing. Although I don't really know why he's got a Luger in that. Did he shoot a Luger in that movie? I don't even remember.
One thing that, with regard to that specifically, that I will bring up, you'll notice that in a lot of the posters, and it goes back to some of the original Dr. No art, when they first did the picture, instead of having Connery hold a Walther, they had him hold a target pistol. And that target pistol has made it onto so many posters, from Connery to Moore. You'll see it a lot, and it's just a continuation of that. And you'll notice, too, that pose is recycled. Oh, yeah. That's what I say.
It's a common pose. You see the one arm crossed underneath the other arm, and then but the gun up. And you see it done very well. I think Roger Moore, actually, of all the posters where you see that particular pose, I think Moore does it the best. Although it's usually drawings of him doing it, but whatever. I think he pulls it off the best. I think the one who pulled it off the absolute worst is Lazenby. He just looked horrible with that, and because he didn't even do it right. He had it like completely up by the side of his face and weird smile on his face. And I know it's just a drawing, but still, that guy. Anyways, so that is my pick for number 21, the UK quad version from The Man with the Golden Gun.
All right. We'll be discussing this later. I think we're going to have some really heated discussions later.
Awesome.
So what do you have for number 20, sir?
Moving on to number 20, we're going to have to go all the way back to the beginning of the book, all the way back to page number 10, as a matter of fact. We're going all the way back. This is the US 1 sheet for Dr. No. This was my favorite of the Dr. No posters. This is the one which is, and we're going way back. This one came out in 63, so it's very obviously 60s. It's very 60s, but it's a cool 60s. You've got Connery with his gun. It is silenced, but at least it's in his hand, and it looks like it could be a Walther, so that's good. And then you've got some of the girls in various states of undress, in various colors. So you have that impact of the color there without it being garish. And you have you've got everything you need to have, especially since this was the very first movie. Bond was not established yet, so you needed something to establish Bond the character. And here you have the suave guy in the tux with a gun, and several ladies lined up in front of him. So I think nothing could scream Bond more than that particular imagery. You also have the iconic, the first time I've seen the iconic use of the 007 with the gun barrel and trigger added to the back of the 7. So the one thing I really, really don't like about it is this giant exclamation point, completely offset from every other bit of typeface on this poster. You have this text at the beginning that says now, and then you've got 4 periods, which is not an ellipsis. I mean, what is this? Now, ellipsis, period? Meet the most extraordinary gentleman spy in all fiction. Then you've got, 3 ellipses? James Bond, Agent 007, ellipsis, giant exclamation point. I hate the typeface on this. I'm going to tell you that right now. It bugs the crap out of me, but at least you are getting some kind of introduction to Bond here. So I do like that, at least. And like I said, Dr. No's posters, most of them were fairly boring. So this one is my favorite of them. It's not one of my favorite movie posters ever, but it is definitely one that if I were to get like a nice print of a poster, I think I would maybe go with this one. Even with all the things I don't like about it, I think I could still frame this and hang it in my home.
Funny you should mention that. Out of all the posters we've talked about on this list so far, the one you're talking about is the first one we've mentioned that I have owned a print of.
Nice.
I did not own the original. Unfortunately, I didn't have that kind of money. So it was just a reprint, and unfortunately, I don't own it anymore because once upon a time, there was a basement flood, and things got lost.
Boo.
This was one of them. But, I agree with everything you said about this poster, with the exception of the fact that the movie came out in 1962, not 63.
The poster art is dated 63. That's what I was looking at. So I don't know if maybe this came out before.
I do like the poster. It's not the one I chose for the film, but I can't fault you for it.
All right. So what do you have at number 20?
At number 20, once again, we have we're moving on a little bit. We have a best of where I don't like most of the posters for it. Mm-hmm. I do like this one, but I don't like it a lot. And what really bothers me about that is that, all things considered, this is a movie that should have a ton of poster variations.
Right.
And it does, but only in terms of character posters, where, you have this person is this character, this person is this character. Whereas this is a movie that invites actual art, and you don't get it.
Right.
So, from the back cover of the book, we have the U.S. Advanced Style A from Skyfall, which features Daniel Craig just casually walking down the gun barrel from the gun barrel sequence. Of course, it's not him in the gun barrel sequence. It's an amalgam of those two things.
Yes.
And it's done in the black and white, and it says Skyfall, November 2012, with the 007 logo in between. And as general James Bond poster art, this looks nice. I like it. But what severely takes it down, this has nothing to do with Skyfall specifically. This could be any Daniel Craig James Bond movie at all. You could change that title to Casino Royale. It works. You could change it to Quantum of Solace. It works. Yep. In fact, it worked better than any of the other Quantum of Solace posters. So with a movie that invited so many better opportunities for art, I thought this was lazy as hell.
Absolutely.
And lazy in terms of it's the best of the best. It's the best of the crop for this movie. And if this were just the advance and then you had much better stuff coming out after, great. But no, you didn't. This was as good as it got. So that's why the Skyfall advance is my number 20.
Yeah, I completely agree. I actually picked a different one for Skyfall, and we'll get to it shortly. It won't take very long to get to it because there really wasn't, for such a great movie. Then, like you said, it did invite there could have been so much better art for it. I guess it's one of those things. I guess if the movie's good enough, they're like, we don't need to spend a lot on the posters because people will see it anyway. I can only imagine that's what their thought process is, because there really wasn't a whole lot put into it, I guess. But yeah, I agree that poster is cool in just a general, it's a cool looking poster sense, but it doesn't scream that movie. You take the title off and you don't know which Daniel Craig movie it's from. You know that it's Daniel Craig, and that's it. That's really So you've narrowed it down to 3, but that's it.
Yeah, there's really not much more you could say about it.
Yeah.
So moving on to my 19,
yes.
It's another one of those where it's a really, really good movie. It invites great art. In fact, it has a very, very iconic image associated with it, which all of the English language official poster art from the time wastes. However, this one is also a poster that I used to own a reprint of until said flood. And so at number 19, I have the US one sheet from Goldfinger, which is on page 56 of the book. Basically, what this is you have a black background. It says, James Bond is back in action, and you see action shot of Connery's face as he's about to pistol whip somebody. Then below that in gold, everything he touches turns to excitement. And you have Sean Connery looking happy with the gun in his hand. And behind him, you see the Golden Girl with, of course, her ass covered by Sean Connery's picture. But at least you see the rest of the Golden Girl. And that's why I picked this poster. And then below that, you have Bond kissing Pussy Galore in the hay bales. And then it's just Sean Connery as 007 in Goldfinger credits. The reason that I chose this picture above all of the other Goldfinger posters that fit our criteria was because this is the one where I found the censorship to the Golden Girl to be the least offensive. Because, folks, she's supposed to be naked, or at the very least, I think you had a little hint of panty in there. And in the poster art, no, she's got a full-on early 1960s bathing suit that makes granny panties look, positively small. And to me, that just kills the iconic image entirely. I mean, ruins it, and to the point of I actually feel offended by the censorship. So because of the fact that the censorship on this poster is the least offensive, that's why I picked it. What I would prefer to have seen is just the black background, the Golden Girl exactly as you see her in the movie, and then the title and credits. That would have been great. That would have been perfect.
And some of the international releases did use something, at least they used the Golden Girl. Looking at one of the Japanese half sheets, that's actually a really cool use of it, although she doesn't look as gold as she does kind of gray. But I agree that I actually picked a different poster from Goldfinger, but it's not... Again, it's another one where they had so much to work with, and I don't think they used it as well as they could have.
So what do you have at number 19, sir?
Going to number 19, and you might, some people might wonder how this ended up so low on my list when it's a movie that I love so much, but quite honestly, the posters were not all that. The posters were kind of blah. And in fact, the one I picked as the best is one that is actually comparatively boring, but I like it because it does have the impact, and because it represented the comeback at the time of the character after a fairly long hiatus. So I picked the U.S. Advance one sheet for GoldenEye. You'll find that on page 248 of the book in the lower left-hand corner. And this is the one where you have Pierce Brosnan's eye, or you assume it's Pierce Brosnan's eye, and the straight-on shot of the barrel of the Walther. And just the tagline, "There is no substitute, 007. Again, it could be, in theory, any of the Brosnan flicks, except for the fact that it's not garish and obnoxious. So really, the only Brosnan flick it could be is GoldenEye. But I like it as a teaser of the comeback of Bond. You get the gun barrel literally, not just the gun barrel imagery, but you get the gun barrel literally. In fact, according to the notes here, it says that this caused several countries to pass on this poster. It was not used in many countries because the gun barrel was pointed directly at the audience. But the other GoldenEye posters, all of them were pretty bad. I mean, quite honestly, they were just collage vomit and not the good kind. So for that reason, I did choose this one here because it has the least going on, but it's the most impactful to me. And I do think it is very Bondy. You've got that, yeah, it could be anybody's eye theoretically. We know it's Pierce Brosnan because we know, but it could be anybody. So you don't have that, we're bringing a new face to Bond and we're going to force that face in your face. It's more of just, we're bringing Bond back, and it's going to be about the character because that's why we're not focusing on the actor. Now, the rest of the posters don't say that, but this poster does, and that's why I like it.
Fair enough. I do like this poster. It's not the one I chose for GoldenEye. However, I understand your reasoning. In terms of the visual art, it's a beautiful picture. And I remember being thrilled when I first saw this in theaters in the run-up to GoldenEye coming out. So I understand your reasoning. It's not what I picked, but totally get it.
All right.
So what did you have at number 18, sir?
Moving on to number 18, we'll have to go back a few pages in the book to page 164. I picked the U.S. one sheet for The Spy Who Loved Me. I'm going to pull it up right now so I can talk you through it here. Now,
excuse him while he whips this out.
Now, this is the one. Now, this is another one where there was a lot of opportunity for art for this film, and yet almost all the posters use the exact same art. The UK quad uses the same exact art. They just use it slightly differently, and I like the way it fits on the one sheet better. That's the only reason I picked the one sheet over the quad. Just the way it fills the space, and you don't have as much dead space in the quad because they had to, they use the same image, which is a portrait image, but putting it in the landscape, they had to make it smaller and fill all the space around it, which is gray. So, in the one sheet version, you get some more collage vomit, but again, it's more of the style that you can kind of flow. You start at the top here with the pyramid and the Sphinx, so you know that's happening, and then you have the image of Bond and the girl, and then you've got the submarine, and you've got the stuff underwater. So it naturally progresses. You start with the land, then you go slowly underwater, and then you see a brief glimpse of the underwater action and stuff here. So it's got everything going on. I don't like the coloring. The coloring is a little bit just too much. It's too dark in places and too bright in others. And I think if they'd evened that out, maybe it would have been a little bit nicer to my eye. But it's not horrible. And like I said, unfortunately, with the Spy Who Loved Me, I mean, all of the posters that would have fit our criteria used essentially the exact same art. So, it's kind of like hit or miss. I just like the way this one filled the space better. But there was really no difference between any of the posters.
All right. We'll be discussing this poster further later.
So then, what do you have at the number 18 spot?
At my number 18 spot, a movie that you have already covered, though different art, I have chosen, on page 111 of the book, the UK quad of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And I don't really particularly like this poster. I don't particularly like any of the ones for that movie, but it's drawn collage vomit. I chose the quad because the quad format works better with the picture and the credits together. Mm-hmm. I really don't like the tagline that's at the top, far up, far out, far more, which, by the way, it's one of those things where they're trying to reach back to previous Bonds. We may or may not find out a bit later that tagline is actually stolen and just changed a little bit from Thunderball. The art, I really don't like the smarmy look on the drawn version of George Lazenby.
This is the one I was talking about. This look with the arm cross, but he has it like supporting the elbow of the hand with the gun, and it's not good. And then he's on skis while he's doing it, which makes it even worse for me.
And then you have I suppose this could be Diana Rigg after a few drinks. I mean, she doesn't look bad. but it doesn't quite look like Diana Rigg. I don't remember her having flame red hair, for that matter.
She has hair? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't look that high up. This picture accentuates something else quite a bit more.
It does, and that's one of the saving graces of it.
I'm like, she has a face. What do you know?
I do like the bobsled thing in the corner. I think if you're going to do some drawn collage art in this picture, then the bobsled is a way to go.
Yeah.
And in terms of just the artistic value of it, I like how you have the curb of the bobsled track being the corner of the picture, and the gunshots and the explosives leading up to the picture of Bond. And then the one thing about that stupid-ass look he's got with the gun pointing up is, again, it's a visual lead. What all of this art in the bottom corner is doing is it's leading you up to the tagline up top.
Right.
And then as you read the tagline up top, the fact that the exclamation marks are in black instead of red then points down to the James Bond 007 is back and gets you to read the credits, which are on the far right side. So your eyes will automatically be drawn to the picture into the bottom left, and the way that the design of the poster goes is it actually draws you around so you read the entire poster. And that's another thing that made me put this a little bit higher, is the composition is reasonably well done.
I definitely can understand that. Again, this one, I couldn't pick this one as my favorite for this movie mostly because of that look. I mean, honestly, you take him out of this picture, and I love the artwork. It wouldn't have made my list for a Bond poster, because without Bond in the poster, you don't have a Bond poster as far as I'm concerned. But the artwork, minus him and who we assume is supposed to be Diana Rigg, is awesome. But then she's got this hey, I don't know, she's throwing her hands up in the air and waving around like she just don't care or something going on. She doesn't look like she's trying to get away from explosions and gunshots. And he's got this ridiculous look on his face, like, I just farted. That's what his face looks like to me. He looks like he just farted, and he's looking around to see if anybody noticed. But then with this ridiculous version of the arms crossed with one hand up with the gun, it's the worst version of that pose that I think I've seen. And that in combination with the face and the skis, it kills me. And so I could not pick this poster as the best of anything. But I do agree that it is, composition-wise, it is a good poster in the fact that it does what it's intended to do. It draws your eye exactly where they want you to see. They're like, look, action, stuff, here, and then leading up to, here's our tagline, and then leading down to, here's the credits. So you see everything, even though it's not in the exact order, left to right, top to bottom. It is visually in the order they want you to see it. And so that does work. I do agree the composition is good.
All right. So I think that brings us on to number 17 now.
Moving on to number 17, the one that I picked is the one from this list that we are not going to find in the book, because this is from the movie Skyfall, and it is not the advance poster of Skyfall, so it's not actually in the book. This is the poster that I chose. I believe this was the U.S. version, and I believe it was the advance. I'm not 100% sure because the source that I found doesn't really tell me that. It was also, the same artwork was used for the DVD cover, I believe. It was the advance and it was the regular release. They used it for both. Okay. This is They were not very creative with these posters. No, they really weren't. And like I said, this one, again, this is just kind of I like this poster because it does have some things going on. This is the one with essentially more than half of the poster is Skyfall and the credits. The bottom half of the poster has our iconic 007 logo as a background to Bond sliding on his back with the gun shooting off into the right-hand side. I like this image of Daniel Craig as Bond. I like the imagery of the poster. I like that they're bold about it. They're like, here's the movie, and you'll either watch it or you won't. It's Skyfall, boom. And then here's, oh, by the way, Daniel Craig's in it. But again, Skyfall, they just did not get very interesting with their posters, and of the ones that they did have, this was my favorite. But it is a fairly impactful poster. I think even though, I look at it and I think, man, half of the poster is just the credits, but get the half that isn't is awesome, and it works so well. I like the way they did the 007 logo with Daniel Craig in front of it. So I had to, that's the one I had to choose for Skyfall. Again, it could be any of the Daniel Craig Bond movies, except for the actual word Skyfall on the poster. There's no way to know specifically that this is from that movie. It could have been any of the Craig movies, but that's the one I had to pick from that particular movie.
I'm just going to say that I severely question your judgment, sir.
Dang.
So, moving on to my number 17.
What did you have at number 17, sir?
From page 256 of the 50 Years of Bond movie posters, the U.S. one sheet for Tomorrow Never Dies. And what we have here is basically photo collage stuff where it looks like you have, and it's very red tinted. Yes. And that's one of the that's one of the positives I can come up with about this poster is I do like the red tinting to it.
Like you were stretching there.
I think, well, kind of. And one, I like red. I just do. It's my favorite accent color. And also it works for the fact that, hey, we're going into red China and so on and so forth. But so you have the screens in the background, probably the worst photograph Jonathan Pryce has ever taken, showing him twice in the upper corner. It doesn't look like him. I know it's him, but it doesn't look like him. But the compositions are right.
Looks like he's trying to be Steve Jobs. But instead of, just having the fist in front of his chin, he's got also a pen or a stylus or something there as well.
Yes, exactly.
He looks like he's contemplating something, but you don't know what.
And this is before Jobs developed. Well, actually, this is just when Jobs came back on the scene. Sorry, I'm thinking time-wise, this would have been just when he took over Apple again. But corporate trivia aside, you have an intense-looking Pierce Brosnan holding the gun in front of him, and that's okay. Got Michelle Yeoh off to one side looking, The thing that I like most about this poster is Terry Hatcher's pose. It's just a very, very sexy pose. And what's interesting is the way she's crossing her arms, she's doing that to cover up the fact that she's pregnant. But just the look that she has, she's got a very Bond girl look. And there's just a very sensual curve to the way that her breast shows. I mean, it's not exposed at all. I mean, it's covered. Mm-hmm. But just the way that it's resting in her arm, there's one full breast right there. And it's just a very sensual curve. And I'm trying to say this in artistic fashion, not pervy fashion, really.
No, I completely understand, and I agree with you. This is one of my favorite poses from all of the poster art with her on it. To me, it's like one of those poses, basically she looks like she's cold, and she's about to ask for your jacket. Or, you're supposed to give her your jacket without her asking it at this point.
And if you give her the jacket before she asks, you're in.
Exactly. If
you don't, you're never in again.
Exactly. So that's what I get from the look. The way that she's holding her arms, she doesn't just have her arms crossed like she has it more like, I'm holding myself because I'm cold, and giving that look like, hey, look at me, I'm cold, you want to do something about that. So yeah, I agree, it's a very Bond girl look, and it's very Terry Hatcher pulls it off very well, especially back in those days. So now I will say that's not the poster that I picked from Tomorrow Never Dies, but that's because I think I may have inadvertently cheated a little bit on that one. But we'll get to that when we get to it. I will say I don't hate this poster. It definitely did not make my top 007 worst list, but it very well. Yeah, you know what? No, it's not bad. It is a little bit too.
It's very much in the middle of the list.
Yeah,
for me.
Exactly, and that's really that's kind of that's where I have it kind of on both. It's just not. It's not bad enough to be the worst of the worst, but it wasn't good enough for me to pick it as the best from that movie either. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Now moving on to my number 16.
Numero 16.
Especially because of what one of the major elements of this picture is.
I think... no, I'm not going to say anything. Go ahead. Continue.
I should love this picture. I should absolutely heart this picture. This should be one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. But because of what they did to a couple other things with it, it has to sit in the middle of the list.
Okay.
Now, bear in mind, this is a poster which I would still not mind owning. And in fact, it would go into two different areas of my home just perfectly fine.
I think we might have found our first exact match, but let me hear what you have to say.
Despite the fact that much of the poster is taken up by the Golden Gate Bridge and a view of one of my favorite places on the face of the earth, the city of San Francisco, I have to put the U.S. advance from A View to a Kill, which is found on page 218 in the book, as my number 16.
Well, wouldn't you know it? My number 16 is also the U.S. advance of A View to a Kill. As soon as you said that it was one of your favorite things in the poster, I was like, oh my gosh, we have an exact match. You have this poster has the potential to be great. It's good. It had the potential to be great, but they messed up a few things.
Did someone just see Christopher Walken in a movie once while they were drunk and just kind of try to remember what he looked like when they drew him here?
Well, here's the thing. Why put him in there at all if you're going to make him that small and way up in the corner where everything about this picture draws your eye away from where he is? He's almost an afterthought. And that, honestly, cut him completely out. Take the blimp out, or just leave the blimp, but without him, you've got a 10 times better poster. Or, alternatively, move the bridge down a little bit. Take some of this empty space out of water underneath here where the credits are. Move the bridge down, move the city up a little bigger, and make Christopher Walken a little bit bigger in here, a little bit more in the foreground. Show me more of the blimp, for crying out loud, and you've got a better poster here. But even with just the art exactly the way it is, just erase Christopher Walken, you have a better poster. Erase the blimp altogether, and you have a better poster, especially since, yes, you have Bond with his gun pointed out, and he's intense looking and holding on to the girl to protect her, but with...
Someone needs to draw a better portrait of Tanya Roberts here as well. I mean, I'm sure she's glad she lost a little weight.
A little. She's proportioned like a Barbie doll in this picture, which, if anybody's ever seen any of those pictures where people have taken a Barbie doll and expanded it to full human size, it does not look right at all. It is not a human form.
And to be completely honest, Tanya Roberts in the mid-'80s, there's no reason you have to draw her any other way. She looks just fine. I mean,
absolutely.
The problem was never her looks, okay?
Exactly. But the way they've got it here, it's like, if you don't have the blimp and Soren in the background, then you don't know what he's shooting at. Okay, that's fine. As it is,
but he's
you
not
don't know what he's shooting
either,
at.
because he's got the gun pointed completely out of the way of the
You're like, what is he? Hey, watch out behind you. Yeah, you're like, in this, the way they've done it, it makes him look like Bond is stupid. Like, what are you shooting at, dude? The bad guy's behind you. They needed to either move him further down the bridge so that he's actually pointing the gun at the bad guy, or, like I said, just get rid of the blimp and Soren altogether and just have San Francisco, the bridge, Bond, and the girl, and it would have been a great poster. As it is, it's a good poster, and that is why I picked it also as the best from this movie. But interestingly enough, the one that I picked as the worst from this movie actually features the same art. But they use it much, much differently, and they add some
I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I don't know, are we going to actually talk about it? No, we're not going to talk about it later. So I will tell you the one that the
one with Mayday?
Yes, the UK quad version, just one page back in the book, covering 216 to 217, you have that same image, although you do get to see a little bit more of the blimp. It's almost as if they took my advice and gave us a little bit more of the blimp, a little bit less water under the bridge. But then you have Bond and Mayday back to back, and I just do not like that image. And then you have just a whole lot of tan empty space.
Yeah, I don't like any of the Mayday posters either. I couldn't include them on my worst list because from an artistic standpoint, Grace Jones, or the Art Deco versions of Grace Jones they started to draw, they work artistically, but she should not be the major focus of something talking about this movie.
No, not at all.
Because the character isn't. And it just, it was too much focus.
Yeah, I think they may have been attempting to attract a specific audience. I think they were trying to point out, hey, look, we have a major character in this movie who happens to be of ethnic descent. So
I think so. I agree with you. And in fact, they said they did some shameless casting on that part, not just with Grace Jones, but also by not bringing back Felix Leiter, but instead having an Asian gentleman. Because hey, we've got a place that has a Chinatown. Let's go ethnic.
And I don't mind them necessarily doing that, but it doesn't make for a good poster because it's pandering to a specific crowd, and that's not I'm not that specific crowd. So if you're going to pander to a crowd, pander to me, and I'll be happy. But if you pander to somebody else, I'm not going to like it so much.
I'll make another point there. I wouldn't mind if it was a matter of, if she was the villain, she would earn that kind of pride of place. That would be okay. And this is gonna be a very important point when I talk about another poster at some other point during this episode, where if you're going to share pride of place with Bond, there are only a very few people you can be. And the character of Mayday is not one of them.
Right.
So,
she's not
especially standing back to back.
She's not the main villain. She's essentially a henchwoman.
Yeah, she's a henchwoman. She's not even the main Bond girl. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
you can almost see the bad chemistry between Bond and Grace Jones, and between Roger Moore and Grace Jones, even in this drawing of them. And so it's like it's awful. Like I said, it uses almost the exact same artwork, but yet I hate it. And whereas this one I just don't like it as much as I could have liked it had they made it just a little bit better.
So we both agree for the first time on the list at number 16 with the View to a Kill U.S. Advance on page 218. So what do you have at number 15, sir?
Moving on to number 15, and I believe this is a movie that you've already mentioned, and I chose a different poster, and this is the one where I take that back. This is not the one where I slightly cheated on accident, but we'll get to that one a little bit later. Turning to page 282 of the book, going back to the very first one you mentioned, the Die Another Day U.S. one-sheet advance, featuring the gun smoking on the block of ice. This one, again, it made it a little bit higher on my list simply because I did like the impact of it, and the fact that, while they could have made it better, lose the silencer, change the Beretta to a Walther, and you've got more Bondinosity, it might have even made it higher on my list, who knows. But just... it is the best that you can pick from this movie because it doesn't feature Jinx. Well, I don't mind looking at Halle Berry. I like looking at her. I will look at her just fine in anything other than this movie. But every other poster features her quite heavily on equal footing with Bond, as a matter of fact, and I don't like that. So this is the one I had to pick as the best from that movie, and I actually do like the poster. I do like the simplistic nature of the fact that you've got just a gun and ice, but knowing what the movie is, and again, if you didn't know what the movie was, then it wouldn't make too much sense. And they could have made it more Bondy by changing the style of the gun. But I still like this one.
See, and I'll just say that this is one of the advantages our audience gets from having two hosts, because we have obviously wildly divergent opinions. Mm-hmm. And that's cool. I like this, because obviously what impacts you is not impacting me at all. I find this poster to be among the least impactful. There's only a few that I find less impactful. And so it's just an interesting contrast, and again, proof that this is a very subjective list.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome.
Absolutely. So that brings us up to the number 14 spot on our list, does not?
Except for the fact that I have to tell you what my number 15 is.
Yes, you do. I was telling you.
And this,
you passed.
I will say, out of all of the posters that got ruined in that flood once upon a time, I used to have the original of this.
Oh.
And it was wrecked. Uh-oh. And this is the one out of that whole list that makes me the saddest that I lost. Mm. Page 229 in the book, the U.S. one sheet of The Living Daylights. And that one it's a combination shameless ripoff poster. I mean, let's be completely honest. You have, on the one hand, off to the side, you have Timothy Dalton in the gun barrel pose, in the gun barrel, and he's facing off with, from the back, a attractive blonde wearing a white negligee that you can still see through and get the full curves of her legs and ass just fine. And notice that she seems to be going commando underneath, and she's holding a gun as well. This is, of course, a shameless lift off of another Bond poster of very famous origin, which no doubt was done because we have a new Bond coming in and we have to, do our little... well, we're too nervous for you to think that, this is still a Bond movie, so we have to make it look like an old Bond, because they were still doing that. But, hey, I like looking at this poster. I can't help it. Even though Timothy Dalton looks like his head was glued on, I like looking at this poster. It's not just from the fact that, she's a really attractive woman, but just artistically as well. She's an artistically attractive woman. And the composition of the picture with the way that they have the rifling on the gun barrel that takes you all the way around, I like this poster. So, my number 15.
I will agree that I do like this particular poster. Like I said, you do have the very attractive, well, you assume that she's attractive. You can't see her face, but everything but her face is absolutely fine in this picture. And you do have Timothy Dalton. I do agree. It looks like they probably had a different, they had a photo of a different actor doing the pose, and then they kind of photoshopped Dalton's head onto there, because it doesn't look like it's quite the right size for the body. It looks like it's just a hair bigger than it should be. But it's a good poster. It does have good composition. It's not the poster that I picked for The Living Daylights, and in fact, the poster that I did pick for The Living Daylights, I put quite a bit higher on my list. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But not a bad poster at all. This one definitely was not my least favorite of this movie either. It was a good one, and it was in contention, but it was not ultimately the one I chose.
All right.
So now that brings us to our number 14 spot.
It does indeed. And for me, it brings us to a poster we've already discussed a bit. It was a little bit lower on your list. I had the US 1 sheet from The Spy Who Loved Me, found on page 164 of the 50 Years of Bond Posters book. And I was in some ways surprised at how high I put this, but in the end, it had to sit near the middle because it's a collage, but it's not collage vomit in terms of there's a definite artistic progression to it. And it very much speaks to its era. This is that 70s Bond poster, without question. This is absolutely a 70s artistically Bond poster. Mm-hmm. And I like how everything flows. You have the jet ski, the pyramids, the Sphinx, and then you have the smoke moving down. You have the submarine pen, and then you have some of the underwater stuff in the corners. I like how it's done on the one sheet the best because I agree with you. I think the poster works better as a portrait than it does as a landscape.
Yes.
I like the pose that you have with Anya and Bond, and because of how they work together in this movie, I think it's okay to put them back to back. And even at this point, Bond still has a bit of the forward position if you look where the legs are put. What I don't like here, one, that does not look like Roger Moore. Even if you've seen another Roger Moore movie, gotten drunk, and tried to remember what he looked like, that's a poor-ass drawing of Roger Moore. And the other thing I don't like is the tagline at the top. It's the biggest, it's the best, it's Bond, and beyond. One, the and beyond sounds stupid. Two, it looks incredibly stupid with the hyphens in between all the letters.
To
it's
infinity
and
space. Beyond. Yeah, I don't understand why they put the dashes there. Originally I'm like, does that stand for something? No, it's not. It's not an acronym. I don't understand what this beyond is about.
And so for that reason, and for the fact that that doesn't look like Roger Moore, I'd really expected to put this much lower, but just something about the colors and the composition just really draw me to it, even for the stuff I don't like. So at the end of the day, I had to put it at number 14.
All right. Well, and I only had that one at number 18, so it's not like we had a huge difference between us. We both thought that it was kind of right near the middle of the pack. I had it in the lower half of the middle. You had it closer to dead center. But either way, it's pretty much... that's really kind of where it is. It's kind of right in there in the middle. For me, a little bit lower half, but still mid-range.
So what do you have at number 14, sir?
Number 14 for me was the UK quad from Russia with Love. You'll find that on pages 28 and 29 of the book, going way back to the front of the book again. This one is, again, you get some... a little bit of collage vomit, but not as bad as some of the future films because everything is separated. And I think they really used the space well here. There's a little bit more white space than I would like, and that's what prevented this from being higher on the list. Also, the look on Bond's face, he looks kind of dubious. I'm not sure what exactly the look is going for, but it's not quite right. But I do like it still. But you also see Sean Connery as Bond. He's got the arm crossed with the gun up pose, but he's doing it right, not like Lazenby's poster. He's doing it very well. Again, we see the Luger or target pistol that you were talking about here, but you also get to see some helicopter action. You get to see several of the girls, including a couple of girls fighting, which is always a fun thing to see. You also have one of my favorite images from the posters of the typography. The O in love has the hammer and sickle of the Russian Federation, or I guess it wasn't the Russian Federation.
The Soviet Union.
Yeah, it was the Soviet Union then. So everything about this, I would have... The things I don't like about this poster, like I said, some of the white space is a little unnecessary. You have some overlap where you don't need it, and then white space where you could have used that space to make some of these pictures a little bit bigger. It also very much has a look of not being finished. It almost looks like a draft to me, even though this is the finished published version, and it just, that kind of throws me off. Some of the way that they've done the background, it's almost done like watercolor style, but some of the background, it almost looks like non-photocopy blue to me. Like it's the sketch work behind the art that we're not supposed to see, but we're seeing it. It's not. That's not what it is. It's just the way the artist did it, but that's what it brings up in my mind, so it almost looks like a draft to me, and that's probably what kept this from going higher on my list. Instead, I have it right here at number 14.
I'll just say we'll be discussing this later.
All right.
So what do you have at number 13, sir?
Number 13, if you want to flip to page 128 in your book, and I'm going to do the same so I can talk from a place of... I should have put, if I'd have thought about it in advance, I may have put, sticky notes or something in my book so I could flip to pages easier. But turning to page 128, we will see the movie is Diamonds Are Forever, and the poster I picked specifically is the US 1 sheet. This is another one where almost all the posters for this movie use the same exact art. You really see almost every single poster has this particular artwork, which is cool. It's very much collage vomit, as we've discussed, but it is very well done still. You do have Bond and the girls as the main focus. You see the diamonds. You do see the satellite above there, and then you see a lot of explosions and fun stuff happening down at the bottom, and you even get a little bit of moonbuggy action down there. So it's a really cool painting or drawing, whatever you want to call it. Some things I don't like about it. I don't need the diamonds are forever, 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 forever. That is completely unnecessary. But at least in this particular poster, as opposed to some of the others, it fades away into darker and more muted colors. Whereas on some of the other posters where they did that same thing, they have it alternating red and white, so the forevers all stand out, so it's more like forever, 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 forever. Whereas this one, it's more like it inspires you to think in an echo, I suppose.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
Sunday, 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 and Saturday too. But no, this one is again, it's not one of my favorites. That's why it's basically in the middle of the pack. But it is very cool artwork, and I think it draws your attention down the picture instead of just throwing it all at you at once. You do kind of get drawn down the picture, and so it's not as bad as some of the other collages that we've seen. And it is a fun poster. Again, you see James Bond in that familiar pose, one arm crossed over, one arm up with the gun near his face. In this one, it looks much more like the Walther, which is good. So that's why it made it more to the middle of my list.
All right. I'll just say we will be discussing this later. Now, at my number 13, I went with from page 101 in the book at the top in the upper left. It's not labeled as such. It's just labeled as the US 1 sheet, and there's 3 of them. However, I did a little extra digging, and they are done in order. So the US 1 sheet style A from You Only Live Twice. And this is the one where the central art, it's just a single picture instead of the one where you have all 3, because you have basically 3 different types of art that they went with for You Only Live Twice. And there's a version of the poster that has all 3. There's a version that has 1, a version that has another, a version that has another. I went with the one that specifically focuses on the volcano fort.
Yes.
Because volcano fort, it's just volcano fort. It's cool. And it's also really, really nicely drawn piece of art. And I like that you can see the rocket inside, and you can see what should be happening, which is when you have the smoke and exhaust from the bottom of the rocket, it should be killing everybody in there. I just think that particular piece of art is the best out of those 3, and having it there by itself is more effective than having all 3 there. That's why I chose style A. I also like how they did with the typeface, where the word twice is split by Connery as Bond standing in between.
Yes.
So I think that's a really, really nice touch. At the very top, you have Sean Connery is, in big, bold letters with it underlined, James Bond. Now, interestingly enough, that's one of the reasons that Sean Connery quit, was because he was sick of being identified as Bond and nothing else. In fact, he got really pissed off when Japanese reporters saw that he was bald and said, "Is James Bond bald?" He said, "No, I'm Sean Connery, and I like to be comfortable." So he wasn't wearing his hairpiece when he wasn't filming. So, but I like, there's one thing about this poster I don't like. but because of the way the coloration is done, it's really easy to miss on your first pass with your eyes. And that is, if you look at the rim of the volcano, Sean Connery is standing there sideways, just pasted in there in his straight up, one leg hooked over the other, hold up the pistol pose. It's unnecessary, looks really stupid, especially when he's standing in the middle of the film's title further down. I think that could have easily been lifted out of there and made a much more effective poster. In fact, that's what kept it this far down on my list. But overall, still not bad. Decent art. I like it. So You Only Live Twice, One Sheet Style A from page 101 is my number 13.
All right. I will say that was not the one that I picked from You Only Live Twice, and we will talk about that fairly shortly here. It's not going to take too long to get there. But yeah, I did like that imagery, but honestly, the Bond walking sideways completely, physics? What physics? That's what kept this one from being one of my favorites from this particular movie. It's not on my bad list by any means, but it is definitely not one that jumped out at me. There's a different image from that particular movie that I like, and I like the style of a different poster. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit.
All right. Now coming in at my number 12, we have to go nearly to the very beginning of the book, page 7, and that would be the UK Quad from Dr. No. And it's a very, very simple piece of drawn poster art. It says what you need to know right at the top, the first James Bond film. That's totally fair. Mm-hmm. And then you have a nicely drawn partial shot of Sean Connery as Bond, and then flanking him off to the side are 4 different pictures of girls. They're the same girls that we see on the one-sheet art you were talking about, except instead of like the colored pencil versions of them, this is more of a painted version. It's all the same poses and everything, and it works very well. It's giving you the image that we have Bond as a ladies' man. And then below the title for Dr. No, you can see the little drawing of the setting, Crab Key. The thing that turns me off about this poster is just off on the far left side, right next to the words Dr. No, you have the half photograph of Joseph Wiseman as Dr. No. And I don't get it. Everything else is drawn. Why throw in the black and white photo on top of that? That basically destroys the feng shui of the picture for me. And even though I like it for what it is, now I'll admit the yellow is probably a bit too much. I probably wouldn't hang it up myself. But just overall, I thought this was the most effective poster for Dr. No. But the fact that Dr. No has a black and white photo of himself off to the side just didn't work. So that's why it's only at number 12.
All right. And that is one of the big reasons why that particular version of this art didn't make it into my list at all. And that's why I picked the other picture from Dr. No, where you got the same essential image of Bond and the girls lined up, but in the various colors instead of being in the more true-to-life colors. And then, of course, that picture off to the side, and it's only half of him. It's not even the whole thing. It's like, what is this about? And the yellow. Too much yellow. They really liked yellow for this film, but at least with the other one that I liked, and the U.S. one sheet, the only yellow was the one girl, and then the other girl was blue, and then orange, and then pink, and then Bond was in kind of a dark grayish green. But no, I definitely like the imagery. Like I said, you have Bond with a smoking cigarette and a smoking gun, and then you have 4 different women in various states of undress lined up in front of him. So nothing could be more Bond than that. The imagery is definitely there, especially for something that needed that imagery because it was the first. There was nothing before it for people to know who this character was unless they'd read the books. And so it really, I think, was very necessary. And so I don't disagree with your choice. Like I said, I like the other one a little bit better just for different reasons, but essentially the same imagery used.
All right. So what is next on your list, sir?
Moving down to number 12. Now we're right smack dab in the middle of the pack here. And now this one is another one that I didn't really like many of the posters for this one except for this one. And this one I liked enough to propel it even up to the middle of the list instead of being down near the bottom. And that would be if you turn to page 268 in your book, all the way back to The World Is Not Enough, which we all know was not a fantastic movie. But the poster in question is specifically the U.S. Advance poster. This is the one that has no actual actors on it. What we have is the silhouette of a woman, a very, very shapely woman, maybe a little skinnier than I would prefer, but it's fine.
I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be Denise Richards, actually.
Yeah, it's not, though. But the fact that we don't see her face is what makes this one the better one. So you have the silhouette of the girl holding a gun in flames, alongside the silhouette, obviously, of Bond holding his gun. Again, we have the silencer, and it's obviously not a Walther. Could be a Glock, I'm not quite sure, because it's just the silhouette, but it's not quite the right gun. But either way, and then we have the iconic 007 with the gun barrel and trigger added to the back of the 7, but in like a metallic gold type of thing. So really all you're seeing is that, oh, hey, look, a new Bond movie. And that's really the best thing that you could say about this particular film, was that, hey, look, it's a new Bond movie.
Again, for me, that's why I can't pick a poster like that, because it doesn't say anything about the particular Bond film in question. I understand. I mean, it's nice looking art, but
as a good thing for this particular movie. The fact that it didn't tell you, because every other poster from this features Dr. Christmas Jones, who I can't stand. So, now honestly, I think the best poster for this movie ever was the Italian poster, where they said, we're not even going to show you anything about the movie whatsoever. We're going to show you a guy in prison. And the tagline, of course in Italian, but the tagline is essentially if you don't watch the new Bond movie, you better have a good reason. That's the best thing. I'm like, it's like, unless you're in prison, go watch our movie.
That kind of reminds me of back in 1999, there was a movie trailer, and the way that it started out was just text. It said, if you're only going to see one movie this year, see Star Wars. But if you're going to see two, see Austin Powers in Goldmember. Or it was either Goldmember or Spy Who Shagged Me, one or the other.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that ad campaign. I thought it was hilarious. Because it's just honest. You're like, hey, this is the big movie that's coming out this summer. If you're only going to watch one, this is the one you're going to watch. But hey, if you're making room for two, we're here too. But yeah, The World Is Not Enough was not a fantastic movie, and all of the posters other than this one featured Denise Richards way too heavily. And I don't mind looking at Denise Richards, but it reminds me of her role in this movie, and that is a bad thing. So I could not possibly pick any of the posters that actually had her on it. If anything, I would have picked the unused character poster for the Cigar Girl, who somehow got her own character poster. I have no idea why that didn't end up being used. But I do like these type of minimalistic kind of imagery posters where if you're going to go with a poster that doesn't necessarily tell you a lot about the movie, then I want it to be simple but impactful. And that's what I think this one pulls off. You have Bond, you've got a girl, you've got the flames, you've got this imagery, and looking at this poster makes me like, ooh, I think I want to see whatever this movie is. If I'd have seen one of the other posters, I'd be like, whatever. But this poster kind of makes me intrigued. While it doesn't tell me a lot about the movie, it does make me interested in the movie. So that's why it makes it as high as my list as number 12.
All right. And what about for your number 11, sir?
Number 11, we're keeping with the same theme here. Now, this is the one where I may have cheated slightly, and I didn't realize it until I was looking at it right now. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I may have cheated a little bit, but I'm still sticking with it because this is my favorite poster from this movie out of the book here. And that one, if you turn to page 258 and look at the top half of the page, you'll see the UK mini poster from Tomorrow Never Dies. I know, I cheated, but it's
Cheater.
It's in English, and it's a UK poster. I thought it was a quad until I read it. I was like, oh, mini poster, but it's still a poster. But I really like the use of the gun barrel imagery here with basically what you have is Pierce Brosnan looking Bondy, except for the fact that he's got the wrong gun. I'm pretty sure that's a Glock there. I don't think that Bond, unless he took it off of somebody else, I don't think that Bond's ever shot a Glock. I can't imagine that he would by choice. But either way, you have Brosnan as the main focal.
Oh, maybe when he was at the gun shop and the guy read the Glockenspiel. And
there you go.
But
then in the background you have one of my favorite uses of the gun barrel imagery is when they use that gun barrel imagery with bits from the movie, whether being drawn or actual stills, and in this case you have actual stills, so you get to see a little bit of Carver, you get to see a good amount of Mrs. Carver, you get to see Bond fighting somebody, you get to see an explosion, you get to see a motorcycle jumping over large distances, and you even get some of the Why can I not think of her name all of a sudden? Michelle? Yao.
Michelle Yeoh?
Yo. I know. It's like Yao, Yi, Yo. Okay. So you get her, everything. And, like, for this particular movie, this was my favorite of all the posters that I saw for it. The one that you picked, the US 1 sheet, is the least objectionable of the others. I think there were a lot of different versions. The actual UK quad, for example, I did not like at all. It was just too much going on and at a weird angle. But this particular one, I really like the use of that imagery, and we'll talk about that even a little bit later when we get to the top part of my list. There's some other ones that use this imagery that I really liked. So that's why it made it into the top half of my list, and even though it may technically not have been on the table. If I had to pick one by the strict rules that we set at the beginning, I would probably pick the same one that you did. But it wouldn't have been this high on my list.
Fair enough. I'm thinking the strict rules of golf scene from Goldfinger. At my number 11, not only did I stay within the parameters, I picked something we've already talked about, and that would be the Diamonds Are Forever US 1 sheet on page 128 of the book. And I like it for all the reasons that you mentioned. I'm actually shocked that it made my top 15 at all, especially at number 11. Because when I first was thinking about this list, I'm like, okay, this is going to be the ones that's going to end up, no higher than 18, 19. But the more I look at it, I don't know what grabs me about it. But the moon buggy thing is cool, and the composition, I think, is a lot of what does it. It just works. Now, the two girls are Vegas showgirls. They absolutely do not resemble the women in this movie at all, which, considering the women they had in this movie, I don't understand. And you have Jill St. John and Lana Wood. Why do you not want to draw them?
Exactly.
But nevertheless, it's still a good-looking poster. It's one of those where I almost can't explain why it's this high on my list, because I keep thinking of reasons I shouldn't like it. But when I look at it, it's just like, artistically, the composition is there. And as you said, the forever thing, it fades nicely, so that's okay. I think the portrait orientation works better than landscape would have. And Moonbuggy. And I like how they use the arm to prop everything up. It just works. So for intangible reasons, Diamonds Are Forever US 1 sheet, page 128, is my number 11.
And like you said, it's one of those things that's weird. Like, at first glance, you think, ugh, and then you think, oh, well, okay. And then it kind of grows on you, and then you look at it, and you're like, actually, I really dig the artwork. In fact, if you take away all the credits and all the actual typography on this particular poster, I would love to have a print of this art and hang it in my home. Just the artwork itself. I don't, the typography takes away from it a little for me. I don't like the way they did I don't need the forever echoing. I really don't. That, for some reason, that just bugs me. Even though this one did it better than some of the other versions, like I'm looking at the Australian one sheet where they did it in red and white alternating. At least this one fades away, so it gives you that. They also did on the UK quad version, they did the same thing where they faded it away, and I think even better than the US version, but then they encased the picture, the actual artwork in a circle unnecessarily, so and that's why I didn't pick that one. But yeah, I do like the artwork, but as a poster goes, it's middle of the pack, and actually a little bit lower than that for me, but not a ton lower. I mean, I had that at 13, so yeah, we're not too far off there.
And that brings us now cracking the top 10.
The top 10.
Yay! And for my number 10, one that I'm pretty sure you're going to disagree with, and I'm actually kind of shocked myself that it made it this high, and that is on page 267 of the book, the UK quad for The World Is Not Enough.
Wow.
And for me, if you're going to do photography collage vomit, this is probably the way you need to do it, because this is how it's done right. I like the black background contrasting with the warm, fire-oriented colors of everything else. You have the gold tone for the typography for the title of the film. Interestingly enough, they put the 007 logo below it up on its own, even though there are enough O's to have done it in the fun way.
Yeah.
However, especially in the quad orientation, What you then have is an off-center circle, which one could take as almost like a globe or a gun sight. I take it as a globe image, actually, seen from the top. But in the center, you have Pierce Brosnan with his ladies. You have Elektra King in what looks like a push-up dress. And yes, you have Denise Richards, but she's hiding mostly behind Pierce Brosnan. And this is the one picture of her where you don't see that stupid tattoo on her gut. I mean, I don't mind ink on people, I really don't, but that tattoo on her drove me nuts. It just... Nuclear physicist? What? No. Go back to the microphone.
Stop it.
But what I like here, then, is you have the warm coloration, and then inside what would, if you're looking at this as a globe thing, the latitude-longitude grids, mm-hmm. You have photos that don't look like the interns put them there. They actually fit. You have the shot of Zukovsky. You have some of the action sequences, and it just works.
Yes.
And just in terms of color and composition, it all comes together, and if you're going to do the photo collage, mm-hmm. this is the best way to do it, as opposed to the absolute child vomit that was my number 23 of the License to Kill UK quad. Here you have, at least it looks like the professionals were in action here.
Yes.
And it's effective. It says this is going to be an exciting film. It's going to be an exciting James Bond movie. In fact, the poster ends up being better than the movie was. So that's why number 10 for me is the UK quad for The World Is Not Enough, which is on page 267 and also covers another page in the book that we're referencing, which is the 50 Years of Bond Posters.
Yeah. Now, like you said, I do disagree with it being that high. I will say that of all of the other World Is Not Enough posters, if I had not picked the one that I did with just the teaser of the girl in the Bond shadow, this is the one I would have gone with of any of the ones that actually had the characters on it, because I do agree with the fact that, first of all, you have Denise Richards. At least she's a little bit further back. She's not quite on equal footing. Elektra's more on equal footing with Bond in this poster. And you do get a slight hint of what's going to happen in the movie. You know, spoiler alert, the fact that it looks almost as if she's reaching for Bond's gun. Like, at first glance, you're like, oh, okay, he's protecting her. But at the same time, oh, look, maybe is she going to try to take his gun away? Like, why would she want to do that? Is she one of the bad guys? So you get that little hint of what might be going on. Some things I don't like about it, obviously, Denise Richards. Again, I don't mind looking at her, especially back in those days. She was still looking pretty good. Hey, but if I want to look at Denise Richards, I'll fire up Wild Things. Okay, I'm not going to fire up The World Is Not Enough to look at Denise Richards. But then you have, the bad guy image in the background of just the red-toned face, and I don't think that fits with everything else as a picture, including another picture of him smaller down underneath Elektra. But that one of him, I just don't like the way that it's there. Like, it seems almost like additional. They're like, oh crap, we made who's supposed to be the main bad guy too small in the poster, so we need to put his face in again. So that part I don't like. I do like the fact, and I do agree with you, it is obviously a globe or a map of some sort, because you do see the actual continents. They appear to be all on fire. Australia seems to be burning at least of all. The rest of them, you can see actual flames rising off, especially in the United States. And South America, you do see, actual flames rising off of the continents. It's very cool imagery, and I like the fact that, much like the gun barrel using the images in the different slots of the gun barrel, this one uses the latitude-longitude lines to insert pictures into the different slots, and it fits well. So I do like the imagery, with the exception of the couple of things that I mentioned, and it would definitely be my runner-up for this movie. I would not put it in my top 10, though, but hey, that's why we have two hosts, not just one.
So what do you have as your number 10, sir?
For my number 10, we're going to have to flip all the way back to page number 100 of the book. We're going to talk about a movie that you've talked about already, and that is You Only Live Twice. I chose a different piece of artwork. This one, I chose the one with Bond flying Little Nelly. Even though it bugs me to no end that he is flying Little Nelly he's firing the rockets, he's firing the machine guns, he's firing everything. Specifically, I picked the UK quad style B, if you must know. That's the top half of page 100 in the James Bond 50 Years of Movie Posters book. And it bugs me to no end that he's doing the arm crossed gun up pose in the cockpit of the Little Nelly while the rockets and machine guns are obviously firing. I'm like, how's he controlling those? Is he pulling triggers with his knees? What's going on here? That bugs me, but at the same time,
power.
I really love this picture because you do get, first of all, you get Little Nelly, which was awesome. You get this whole chase scene. You get the other helicopters blowing up. You get explosions. You also get a little taste of the volcano fort down in the corner. You get to see that, so you know it's there. I also very much like the typography of the You Only Live Twice being split by James Bond, only in this one. I like the coloration of the black and gray better than the blue and red. The blue and red on the US 1 sheets, it seemed like it reminds me of old cheesy 3D, and that just takes me out of it for a second. So I prefer the black and gray, although I will say I do prefer the placement of the split on the US 1 sheets, where it's actually like right around his body, right around his torso, as opposed to this one, it's down around his legs. And it almost makes his legs look like they're not quite the right length. Like they added his feet in, like a foot length below where they actually should be, just so they could put him in there. And it's like, wait, it just doesn't quite look right. But I like the coloration a lot better. I also think the picture works better in the landscape format as opposed to the portrait format. However, I would have been more than happy with them making the picture bigger and taking up more of the space. I could have easily seen them put the text over some of the picture instead of forcing the picture into the blank space. But I do like the picture. And again, this particular piece of art, I would love to have a print of and frame and place in my home. I don't know if I'd do the actual poster the way it's portrayed, but that piece of artwork I would love to have. It's just a cool piece of art, fun piece of art, and so that's why it made it to my top 10. All right. And what about your number 9, sir? Moving on to number 9, this is another one that you are going to absolutely hate, I'm sure. Go all the way back, way back to the back of the book to page 308. This is the UK Advance, although I believe I saw this picture.
They were the same.
As well, but it was noted in the book as the UK Advance of Quantum of Solace. And this is the poster that is just the shadow, and I love it. I can't explain. No, it doesn't tell you a dang thing about the movie. You have a shadow that could be anybody. Yeah, we know it's Bond. He's holding a gun that's very un-Bond-like. You don't see Bond holding a big old assault rifle. Most of the time, he's usually holding a handgun of some form or another. In this one, he's got this full-on assault rifle. I don't even know, is it an MP5? Do you happen to know? Doesn't really matter.
Not sure.
Either way, it's a big gun instead of just a handgun. But I love the imagery of this. You've got the cracked ground in black and white, and then the shadow, the stark shadow of Bond holding this gigantic gun. And then it just says 007, October 31st, 2008. I love these type of posters that use shadows and imagery, and even though it's very, very simple, very minimalistic, and it doesn't tell you anything about the movie, but I look at this poster and I'm like, well, I want to see this movie. So that's why it's so impactful for me, and that's why it even made it to number 9 on my list.
We will have words later.
The gauntlet has been thrown down. I
just have to say, again, we have a definitely different idea of what's impactful, and that's cool.
And, well, like one of my favorite movie posters of all time, even though the movie was nowhere near as good as it should have been, one of my favorite movie posters of all time is the teaser poster from Star Wars Episode 1 that shows just Anakin walking by that sand hut.
And Vader's shadow?
The shadow of Vader.
That's awesome.
Oh, I love that poster so much. And anytime they, like I said, I love the use of shadows and things like that. And this one, of all the Quantum of Solace, because all the Quantum of Solace posters were fairly boring. I mean, the other posters were just actually him walking around with that big gun, which that took it even further out of the realm of Bondinosity for me. And then the one that you mentioned with them walking away from the Perla de las Lunas, which, again, we talked about how that could have been made better, but wasn't. So for me, my favorite from Quantum of Solace and one of my actual favorite Bond posters, I mean, like I said, we're in the top 10 now. We're in the good stuff. We're in the ones I really like. And I really like this one. And it's okay if you don't. I accept that. I'll just sob over here in the corner by myself.
You do that. Meanwhile, I'm going to pay better homage to one of your favorite movies than you did.
Uh-oh.
At number 9 on my list, on page 249 in the book, is the US 1 sheet for GoldenEye. And this is one where there is one very subtle thing that's done that separates this from being a bad poster. Because the way that we're looking at it right now is you have the title at the bottom. First of all, you have an overall black composition. At the bottom, you have the title and credits. The title, there's a little ring around where in between Golden and I, which is kind of cool. And then above that, you have Pierce Brosnan running through an explosion, and that explosion contains several things. You can see the explosion of Severnaya in there, and you can see a bit of a car in there. So you've got, and you can also see a little bit of our Bond girl off to the side. So you've got the action there, and then you've got the red 007 logo. And then above that, you have the face of Pierce Brosnan, and then you have him holding the gun and pointing it just a little bit off center, so not right at you, but close. And then on either side of him, you have the face of Isabella Scorupco, looking thoughtful, and Famke Janssen, looking evil.
You mean hot.
And the thing that makes this poster work is that those three faces up top, in the version that I'm choosing, are in gold tone.
Right. And
they are not photo real.
Right.
They're idealized gold tone. And that makes all the difference, because there is a version of this poster where all those faces are photo real, and it kills the entire composition and turns it into collage vomit. It's that one little difference between a really cool poster that I would not mind owning in my home to one that I wouldn't want to look at. It's a very much a matter, it's an artistic composition thing for me. It's very much a choice of how that portrayal is done. You do it one way, it works. You do it another, it's awful. And it's these subtle little things that make all of the difference. So for me, GoldenEye US 1 sheet, page 249, is my number 9.
Wow. I will say that we're not going to have specific words about this later in the show, but I will say that there may be specific words had a little bit later in the show about that poster. A little preview. I do want to point out, though, that for GoldenEye, there is one particular unused poster concept. If you turn to page 252, why didn't they use this? This is a beautiful poster. It has everything that you're talking about. It's got the explosion. It's got little bits of the action, but not too much. You've got the MiGs flying over an explosion. You've got the satellite, which actually that part's unnecessary, but it works okay. You've got the 007 in the background faded, but then you also have, again, the same people. You got Brosnan and the two Bond girls there.
I don't like the black and white for Isabella Scorupco in that one, though.
Yeah, the hand on the hip kind of popped out as unnecessary, like they could have tucked that back. I don't mind her face, but yeah, the pose I don't like as much. But I dig the heck out of this poster. Like, how did they not use that? Now, some of these other unused ones that they show, I don't like at all. But this one in particular, like that one, is an awesome poster. I love the fact that Bond's body is like a silhouette of explosion leading up to his actual real face, but in black and white. And I don't know if that was just like, if that would have been in color, if they'd had actually gone with it, because some of these concepts, you don't know if it was a final version or not. But just as it is right there, I love it. If they'd have used that as the poster, it would have easily been in my top 10.
Fair enough, fair enough. So what is next on your list, sir?
Moving to number 8 on my list is a poster that you already berated somewhat, but I'm still going to go with it. And I do dislike the same thing that you dislike about this poster, and I think it could have been better, but it's still one of my favorite, and it's still such an iconic image for me that I have to choose it. If you turn to pages 52 and 53 in the book, this is the UK Quad release of Goldfinger. This is the one specifically where you have the Golden Girl, you have the face-on picture of the Golden Girl, which I don't like as much as the actual imagery from the movie, but you still have that Golden Girl, and then Bond and the girl projected onto her body. And yes, she is wearing a bathing suit in this, and it is a very 60s bathing suit. It was very skimpy for the 60s, I'm sure, but it was still a very 60s bathing suit, which obviously she was not wearing when she was in gold in the film, but it still gives the imagery for me is just I love the imagery here, even with the unnecessary censorship, because they could have used the butt pic instead. But I didn't really dig any of the other posters. The closest one is the UK Quad, where they are projected on just the gold hand, but I don't like that nearly as much. I really enjoyed them actually projected on the gold girl, even though it's a different shot of the Golden Girl than we actually get in the film. But I still really dig it, and so that's why. I mean, and again, this is another one that I would absolutely love to actually own and have. So I would not be opposed to having a print of this in my home.
All right. Well, I've already said my piece about it, so I understand your reasoning. Now, for my number 8, I am actually shocked that it was this low on my list, even though it is possibly the most appropriate number 8 I could possibly have chosen, because from Octopussy, it is the US 1 sheet, which is shown on page 199 in the book, and it's just a really great poster overall. I love the font that they used for the title, where the O in Octopussy is made to be an octopus, which I think is great. I really, really love how they took advantage of the Indian setting, and so when you have the picture of James Bond up front, you then have Maud Adams' Octopussy behind him, but she has 8 arms. So not just suggesting the octopus thing, but 6 arms and 2 legs, therefore 8 appendages. Not just suggesting the octopus thing, but also the Hindu goddess thing that you always see in those representations. And in one hand, she's got the Fabergé egg, she's grabbing his gun, she's buttoning up his coat or unbuttoning it, whatever, and she's playing with his ear. So I love that image. And you also have the great shot up front of the horse trailer airplane being shot at. And then you have in the bottom little action sequence where you see Magda doing a high kick, some explosions. And then up in the upper corner, this is part of, I think, what puts it lower. You have the shot of the airplane battle with the tagline, James Bond's all-time high. One, I don't need the tagline, and the plane doesn't do much for me, but there's also the matter of there's a whole ton of white space on this poster. Mm-hmm. And I would rather have seen something else. I'm not quite sure what, but it's a little bit empty for me, and that upper left-hand corner just doesn't quite do it. But this is a great poster. It's fabulous artwork, and I love, again, Maud Adams standing behind Roger Moore, and just the way that they have her drawn with the multiple arms around him. That's just fabulous imagery. That's some of the best poster imagery there is, actually.
Oh, absolutely.
Take just that one element.
And just a side note, this particular book, the James Bond 50 Years of Movie Posters, actually comes with a wonderful print of that imagery. Not the poster itself, just that picture. And I'm going to take my copy and have it framed and probably put it up, because it is absolutely brilliant.
Woo woo. So that is my number 8.
I don't disagree with any of the reasons you said. I did pick a different poster from that particular movie, but using the same base imagery, and I put it a little bit higher on my list, but not a ton. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But does that bring us all the way up to number 007?
It does. And for me, we'll be talking about a poster you've already discussed.
Okay.
And that is on page 29 of our book, the UK quad of From Russia with Love, which I was surprised to have this high, but I just really, really like this. One thing I'm a sucker for is the drawn art. I will almost always prefer drawn art over photography in posters. Not always. There are some definite exceptions, but I like the extra artistry and effort and interpretation that goes into the drawn art. And I suppose a lot of that, too, is that we're moving away from it now in modern posters, where you just don't see it anymore.
Right.
So there's some nostalgia going on there. But I like how you have really, really nicely drawn art. And it's a collage, but it's not collage vomit. There's enough space in between. I like the poses on the girls. I like Tatiana sitting there with the half-open shirt, just casual, relaxed, like you would expect her to, like you would see her in the movie.
Exactly.
And where you have the dancing girl, you have the 2 gypsies fighting, and then you also have the great shot of the helicopter chase and a little bit of the Hagia Sophia from the Istanbul scenes, which, again, I think is one of the most beautiful buildings in the world. I almost chose that as one of our things for the location episode, except not quite enough happened in there. I mean, yes, something happened inside, but it wasn't high action, though then again, it is a church for multiple faiths, so it's kind of hard for you to do that. But I like the inclusion of Hagia Sophia in there. And as you mentioned, I like the hammer and sickle of the Soviet Union included in the title. So overall, I just really, really enjoy the art and the composition on this. So that's why it had to make my number 007.
All right. Well, like I said, I did like this poster. It was my favorite of the From Russia with Love posters. A little bit lower on my list simply because I thought there was a little bit too much white space. And the way the artist did the artwork, it almost seems like it was a draft, like an unfinished draft to me. Just because I've seen a lot of, draft artwork where they use the non-photo blue as their sketch lines before inking and coloring it in, and when you see the unfinished, the unscanned in artwork when doing digital art, you see that. And
I think the unfinished look is part of what I like about it.
Okay, well that's fair enough. But that's the beauty of this, is the fact that look appeals to you, and it just detracts a little for me, but not a lot. I mean, I did have this at number 14, so it's not like it was way down on the list or anything like that. And it is a great poster. I do like the artwork quite a bit.
So what's next on your list, sir?
For my number 007, this is one of the very few from the newer movies that actually appealed to me enough to make the top 10 list, and in fact the number 007 list on mine, and that is the actual UK quad release for Casino Royale. That can be found on pages 290 and 291 of the James Bond 50 Years of Movie Posters book. I really, again, I like the imagery here. You've got Bond kind of by himself, alone, Daniel Craig there in the tux with the tie undone. He's holding the Walther with silence, but But then you have the silhouette of the woman, and I'm going to assume that that's Eva Green's Vesper that we see there, but you don't see her face, you don't see anything identifiable. Instead, what you see is a picture of the casino front, and you see a little bit of a nice car there. Now, some of the things that this poster for me would work better as a one-sheet, because it is very much a portrait picture, but I didn't see any of the actual releases using this imagery as a one-sheet, so I had to pick this one, even though it's got a lot of blank space off to the side, because they maximized the portrait picture that they had to deal with. But I could have very easily, I would love to have this piece here on the right-hand side, which is the Casino Royale tagline. Somewhere in there would be fine. But this is one of the few posters from the Daniel Craig era that could only fit this one particular movie, because it does actually have the Casino Royale in the picture. But I really dig this imagery. I really do, and it really just kind of jumps out at me. And even were I not already a fan, I'd look at this and be like, okay, this looks like a movie I want to see. And
all right.
I would also love to frame that particular work and put it up in my home. So,
we'll be discussing something along these lines shortly.
All right.
So what do you have at number 006?
Moving on to number 006 is the movie that we were just talking about a moment ago at number 8 for you. That would be Octopussy. But the one that I chose is actually on page 202 of the book. And this is the one international poster that I chose, and luckily it does not have any foreign language writing on it whatsoever. It is only in English, so I can get away with it. And that is the Japanese one-sheet advance from the upper left-hand corner of page 202. Again, you have that iconic imagery of Maude and Roger, and that whole thing going on, which is fantastic. You have the Octopussy with the octopus as the O, but then you also have some scenes from the movie in the background which clear up all of the other posters I've seen of this had way too much white space for me. It was either just that picture or it was that picture with other things, but there's too much white space. A close runner-up for me would have actually been the UK quad version, but again, that had a ton of white space as well. I really like the way that this one is done. It gives you enough without being cluttered. And I really, really dig, like I said, this particular image that we talked about is just so fantastic. Any poster with that particular imagery is going to be high on my list, no matter what. Now, honestly, I think my favorite poster using that imagery is actually the Japanese one sheet on the next page, on page 203, but that also has Japanese writing all over it, so it didn't count for this.
And you notice that it no longer looks like Maud Adams on that page?
Yeah, they do change your face quite a bit, which is the only bad part. I don't know why they need to do that. But
when I look at the one that you chose on 202, I get what you're saying, but to me the photo collage in the background just looks like collage vomit, And while I don't mind the picture where you see Maud Adams sitting on her throne chair on the right side at the bottom, on the left side at the bottom, our Cuban contact looks like she's taking a dump on the way to the airplane.
Is that bad? I don't know. Yeah, I can understand
that pose. I mean, that is the universal "I'm taking a dump" pose.
I do agree that picture was probably poorly chosen, but everything else about the composition of this poster I do enjoy, and that may be a reason why it didn't make it even higher on my list. But I would still love to have an original version of this poster, and I would put it up, dump taking and all. Maybe I'd put it up in the bathroom, help inspire people.
Here's trivia for you. Like I said, I am a poster collector, and I do have a movie poster up in my bathroom. Right next to the shower, I have the poster for Psycho.
Ah.
It's just one of those little fun things where if the person walking into the room gets the joke, either they laugh or they feel really creeped out.
Like, wait a minute.
But moving back to the James Bond series.
Yes, but
at my number 006, I have on page 74 of the book.
Oh, really?
The U.S. one sheet for Thunderball. And this is the one where, because you have three main artistic choices for this particular film that they used.
Yes.
You have the art where you have James Bond doing the whole, I'm holding the target pistol up, legs crossed, all that crap, where he's wearing the jetpack. You have the action sequence of the underwater battle, and then you have Bond surrounded by a bevy of gorgeous women. And they're usually, most of these posters have the phrasing that the On Her Majesty's Secret Service tagline ripped off. This one, and it's all written with 007s, which is really cool. Yes. Look up, look down, look out. And I like this particular poster because it has all three pieces of art because I think they're all great. Mm-hmm. And I like the order of the composition, where you have the jetpack up top, you have the high action and dark colors of the underwater sequence in the middle, and then you have the light colors of Bond surrounded by women at the bottom, right near the credits, which makes sense. And I also think that it works very well in the portrait style as opposed to the landscape style of the quad.
Yes.
So that is why I chose the Thunderball US 1 sheet with all three pieces of art, the jetpack, the underwater scene, and James Bond with the bevy of women from Thunderball.
Awesome. That's definitely a good choice. And in fact, while we're talking about Thunderball, why don't you go ahead and flip all the way back to page number 74 for the US 1 sheet of Thunderball, which is my number 5.
Imagine that!
I completely agree. This is the one that had... Now, I will say I'm not a huge fan of the particular portrait of him with the ladies. Like, that's my least favorite of these three pieces of art, which is why
I'll agree. It's my least favorite of the three as well, but...
it's just something about the way he's sitting there with the flippers on his feet, and I'm just like, this doesn't work for me. But I do love the jetpack, and he's got, of course, the classic arms crossed, gun up pose while flying around on a jetpack. That's cool. You've got him fighting underwater with somebody, which is awesome. And then you've got the girls, and you do have this look up, look down, look out. And the way they worked the 007 into the look, being the two O's, obviously, and then the back of the K is the 7, is fantastic typography. I love that. And yeah, so this poster is just really, really cool. And even had I not seen the movie, if I saw this poster for a movie, I'd be like, yes, I want to see this. I would very much like to see this movie. This looks interesting. I see jetpacks, I see underwater scuba fighting, and I see ladies. I want to see this movie. And that's why it makes it all the way to my top 5 list on this particular list.
Well, I can't say I disagree with you. It was my number 6. So now my number 5, I expect you to disagree with me heavily on.
Uh-oh.
And this is actually the lowest on the list that it ever got for me, this particular poster. It flirted with top 3, but eventually made it down to 5, but that's the lowest I could put it. And it's for a movie that I don't hold in incredibly high esteem, but I thought that this particular poster was brilliant. And that is, on page 158 of James Bond, 50 Years of Movie Posters, the U.S. Advance for the Man with the Golden Gun. This one particularly is a Christmas present from James Bond, and it shows you how to construct the golden gun out of component parts. It shows the pen. And I know this is going to be on your worst list. I'm just hearing that in your voice right now.
Well, I'll be honest, it's I'll give it away because it's not on my top 7 worst list. It was number 8.
I love this poster. You've got, because it shows you how to construct the golden gun. And I just think that looks really cool. And as an advance, I mean, if this were the only poster for the movie, if this were the full release poster, it wouldn't work. But as an advance, as something to tease you and to make you interested in this movie, that's cool. I like it. And it's not just the picture, it's explaining how to do it. And it's calling it a Christmas present because that's about the season it came out. And then you have, of course, underneath this explanation of how to put together the golden gun, you have just the bust version of Roger Moore holding the pistol up next to the 007 symbol. And the writing down there is written in red and green for Christmas, but it works well. It's not like Christmas coming only once a year. But I just really like this. I think this is a really clever concept, a really clever idea, and it just strikes me as cool. It appeals to the nerd in me. So I love this poster. So for my number 5, The Man with the Golden Gun, U.S. Advance.
Like I said, this one did make my worst list. It made number 8, so we won't be talking about it in detail on that list. But to me, like, first glance at this poster, what I think of is this is an ad from the middle of a late 70s Playboy. That's what I see on this picture. I don't see a poster for a movie. I see a cheesy ad for some kind of, like, sharper image, something in an old Playboy or something like that.
I could see a 007. I mean, Ian Fleming published a lot of his novels in Playboy first.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it wouldn't be out of place.
I can see that. And that's another thing that makes it work for me.
And nothing negative against Playboy as a publication either. I've actually I've had subscriptions in the past. My grandfather had subscriptions. The reason I know what the late 70s Playboy looks like is because my grandmother had a bunch of my grandfather's old Playboys still at their house. And
at least the ones where the pages didn't stick. But anyway. No.
Well, she had purchased him a subscription and kept it going for very many years. So they had a good solid relationship, I would say. But
that's very cool.
I definitely have to disagree with it being in the top of anything list other than the top of what were they thinking lists. But again, that's why lists like this are so subjective, because I look at this and say, ugh, and you look at it and say, wow. Now, I do agree that it's cool in that they're showing you how to use the golden gun, but at the same time, it's almost like it's like taking the cheesiest thing from the movie and throwing it at you, which on the one hand is good because
the cheesiest thing, I don't think that's the cheesiest thing by far. I mean, you have so many other choices. You have Miss Goodnight as a choice. You have Knick Knack as a choice.
But it's still pretty cheesy. But it's cool. Like, the gadget itself is a cool idea. But I definitely can't hold it in as such high esteem as you do.
Diversity is what makes the world go round.
Exactly. All right.
Now, moving on to my number 4, this I think will absolutely surprise you.
Okay.
I don't think you'll disagree with it. I think it'll surprise you.
Okay.
Both the fact that I included this at all and that it's this high on my list.
All right.
Especially after what I've said about other posters. But for my number 4, on page 302 from the book, I went with the U.S. one-sheet advance of Casino Royale, which it is just a single photograph of Daniel Craig, his face half in shadow, but you can see him, sitting at a gambling table with a gun on the table and a bunch of gambling chips. And then you have just the title Casino Royale with the 007 logo in between. Perfect way to advance this movie. Because, one, you're introducing the new 007. You're making him look, you're showing who he is.
Yes.
You're putting him in a very classic Bond pose. You have him there with the gun. And because this is Casino Royale, the fact that he's at a gambling table is the Bondinosity level that is missing from all those other advanced pictures that I've talked about already.
Yes.
Where this speaks specifically to this movie. And overall, it's also just a great single photographic portrait of James Bond. So it fits the general criteria of who is Bond and the specific criteria of what is this movie. Just stunningly well. In fact, this is probably, if you're going to take a single still image that isn't a composite of anything, that only shows just James Bond, this is probably the single best still image of just James Bond out there that I can think of.
Oh, no, I definitely agree. This is actually a really great poster. This would be a very, very close runner-up to the one that I chose, and it probably still would have made my top 10, even if I had chosen this one over the one that I did choose. This is a fantastic poster. You have James Bond brooding, looking very serious, obviously wary of his surroundings. You have his hand on his gun ready, and what you have there is what appears to be a Walther. It is silenced, but what you going to do? Why he's got to go with the silenced gun when he's obviously out in the open? I'm not sure why that would be necessary, but that's the one thing that I don't like about this is the fact that that gun is silenced when he's obviously at a poker table. And you can tell it's a poker table if you've played poker because you see the two cards. He has his whole cards in front of him with a single chip on top of them holding them down. So you know he's playing Hold'em. You can tell just instantly. If you've played the game, you know that that's what he's playing. He's also got a fairly large stack of chips there. So you don't know. You know that he's not doing poorly, but you don't necessarily know how well he's doing because you can't see anybody else's stack. So it tells you that the game is still in the middle, that he's not, you can read a lot into this one single image, and it is really, really, really well done. Like I said, I think the one thing I don't like about it is the fact that the gun is silenced. I think that's completely unnecessary in that setting. But other than that, I completely agree. It's a fantastic image, very impactful. And if it wasn't for the imagery in that other picture that I chose of the silhouette with the picture of the casino in the background, this would have been definitely my runner-up.
I agree with you about the silencer in principle. I think I understand why it's there, though, for terms of composition, because otherwise the gun might be too small to see under his hand. I mean, you could see it, but it would be a lot more difficult to pick out, just because there's so much shadow in the picture.
Yeah, and the gun itself is out of focus in the picture. Though the focus is actually higher up on his wrist, and in the center of the frame, whereas the gun itself is actually kind of out of focus. So it's not meant to be in your face. Hey, look, here's a gun. It's more like an afterthought, like here's James Bond, and of course James Bond has a gun.
Yeah, but I just really like this picture. It's the one, in fact, out of the entire set of Daniel Craig posters, this is the one standout for me, because even though I own the U.S. one-sheet final release of this movie poster, I have to say it's probably the single worst photograph of Eva Green ever taken. I mean, she's gorgeous, don't get me wrong, even in that, but it's just that one miscue kind of is a little bit off-putting. I still own the poster, but that one little thing is a little bit off-putting.
You're talking about the actual one-sheet advance?
No, the actual one-sheet release.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So where you have Daniel Craig walking away from the casino, shirt kind of undone, tie undone, and Eva Green is giving that look, standing in the dress on the stairs.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to get a bad picture of her, but that one they managed. Now, the character poster that featured Eva Green, now that's good.
Well, yeah, but we disqualify character posters. Otherwise,
we're talking.
Otherwise, we'd be picking the Bond girl poster for about half of these.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, especially that Eva Green one. Oh my goodness gracious, and that purple dress. Oh. Anyways, what was I saying? I lost my train of thought there quite severely. Moving on to my number 4, and I think this is one that I hinted at earlier. I don't know if you figured out this is the one I was talking about, but turning to pages 226 and 227, it is the UK quad release for The Living Daylights. I dig the heck out of this poster. I love the imagery here. Again, we've got the gun barrel scene with Timothy Dalton, very Bondy in the classic pointing the gun pose, and then using the gun barrel as a way to portray images from the movie. But instead of strictly separating them into wedges, it's more of a collage, but it's well done. And with the lines of the gun barrel, it draws your eye around the circle instead of throwing it all at you at once. I just really dig the imagery on here. You get a good shot of the car, you get some good action, you got an explosion over here. The only blank space is a really great shade of red, which doesn't distract from the rest of the poster, and then it leads into the mountains and everything. Oh, I dig the heck out of this picture. I just look at it and I'm just like, this is awesome.
See, I'm sorry, go on.
No, I would go ahead.
For me, I can't agree because the colors are assaulting my face. It's the red and then that bright orange explosion right below it with the blue, and it's just too much. I don't think there's enough harmonization going on. I can see what you mean about the composition as far as it drawing you all around everything, but and I do like the picture of the girl in here, because that does actually look like Miriam Diabo. But if you look at Timothy Dalton, very washed out, airbrushed, and then the picture of him in the car, it's not even the right car. And if you look at Whitaker, I think that's supposed to be Whitaker. It's not Whitaker. And
that's actually a plus for me.
Koskov, that's not. It's just the portrait. They got the portraiture on Miriam Diabo right, and I like the fact that she's holding a rifle, because that mimics the opening scene with her. But just there's so much about this poster that it just rubs me the wrong way. I understand where you're coming from, but I can't agree with you. Though I am noticing in advance here that this means that whatever order they happen to be in, our top 3 posters are going to come from the same 3 movies.
Ah, yes, because we haven't talked about them yet. So, yeah.
But did you have anything more to say about your number 4? Because I don't want to be disrespectful about it.
No, like I said, this one, for me, it's just, I can't stop looking at it. I just really dig the poster. And it's just, I just dig it. And for me, that's what it came down to. Like, it got high marks in everything for me, because it's impactful. It's got the Bondness to it that it needs, because it's obviously got Bond there, and Timothy Dalton's doing a very good Bond pose there. And I really dig it. I would definitely want this image framed.
All right, fair enough. Now, I'm going to make a prediction before we go on to our top 3.
All right.
If our number 3 comes from the same movie, then I think our number 2 and our number 1 will also come from the same movies.
Think they'll be in the same order?
Yes.
If number 3 is, then 2 and 1 will be as well.
And I think that our number 1 will be from the same movie, but a slightly different poster. That's going to be my guess. I don't know, but that's my guess.
All right. Well, do you want to start off the top 3 then?
Okay. My number 3 is Pew 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 Zombie. It is on page 179 of the book, the U.S. one-sheet style A of Moonraker. And this is, if you're going to do a collage that takes up the entire poster, there is no border on this poster. This is solid art from corner to corner. And I like that. I really like that a lot. There are not very many drawn posters or painted posters where you have that. Right. And that's something I really appreciate about this poster. And the collage inside is very, very well done. It speaks very much to the movie for what it is.
You did say style A, right?
I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. You did say style A, right? We're talking about the bottom of page 179?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Just making sure we're on the same page.
You've got Outer Space Now Belongs to 007 up at the top. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the titles below. And you have Roger Moore in a different pose than normal. He's actually in the full gun barrel pose. And I think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. And leaning up along his side, you have Dr. Goodhead. And it looks like Dr. Goodhead. That's one thing I really love about this particular poster is everyone in it looks like who they're supposed to be. Like you have Jaws flying up over Bond's shoulder, and that looks like Richard Kiel as Jaws. Yep. You have Drax in the upper corner on the gantry. That looks like Drax. And the girls actually look like girls from the Moonraker. And then, of course, you have the Moonraker itself up in there, so you're not missing out. But everything takes place in the space station in this poster. I love the colors. I love the action. I like that that it's not just the plain white, and you went with the art all the way across.
Yep.
I just really, really dig the hell out of this poster. This is, basically, when you're looking at the top 3, for me, they're all just fantastic and stand as not just top 3 Bond poster art, but I would say they'd also land top 10 overall poster art for motion pictures. So my number 3, Moonraker, US one sheet style A.
I definitely agree with everything you said there, and I'll even add a couple of things in just a moment, but not right this exact second, because my number 3 does not match yours. My number 3 actually matched with our celebrity guest commentator, Raven. I went with the UK quad version from Live and Let Die. And this is the one that I picked specifically because I think it had the best combination of the best portrayal of the artwork here. Again, you've got the cards, you've got the explosion in the background, you've got Bond in the Roger Moore doing one of the best crossed arm, gun up poses, even though, again, we do have this Target Luger thing going on here, which is unfortunate, but everything else is great. You've got great coloration. You've got the speedboat chase. You've got the car chase. You've got the alligator crocodile thing going on over here. You've got everything about this movie is summed up in this picture, and it's done in such a fantastic way where you get a ton of stuff, but it's not collage vomit. It is very, very well oriented and very well composed to where you can actually see everything and it doesn't assault the senses. And then you also have the typography, the 007 used in Roger Moore's name, and the dagger as the I in Die. Just very, very cool all around. Like I said, I have to agree with Raven on this one. Although I didn't put it as my ultimate favorite, it did make my top 3 at number 3. And in case you're following along in the book, that's page 138 and 139 in the James Bond 50 Years of Movie Posters book.
And then after you've given that a gander, you can turn the page to 140 for the US 1 sheet of Live and Let Die, which is my number 2, which features much the same art, it's just different orientation. Yeah. And I think that the orientation of the 1 sheet for me works better because of the playing card theme. Of course, they're not playing cards or tarot cards, but still card theme, because that's the orientation of the cards. And I love the idea of you have the portraits inside of the tarot cards, and I also like that you have the girl up front, even though it's not solitaire. It still works where she's holding out a hand of cards. Yeah. I like all the details. I mean, if you're looking for super rich detail, to me, this is the most detailed poster we've got. You've got, aside from Roger Moore, the typography you mentioned, you've also got Tahi on one of the cards, and then I really, really like, and this is a detail that's easy to miss, but it's just so awesome. If you look on, as you're facing the poster, the far left side coming out of the card, there's a little James Bond voodoo doll, and that is just so cool. A Bond voodoo doll.
And he's even doing the same pose, the crossed arm, gun up.
Yeah, this is just a fabulous piece of art, and to me, this is hands down the best drawn art from the James Bond series, and if not for something very, very, very special, this would easily be a number 1. But this, as it stands, this is just awesome at number 2. The Live and Let Die US 1 sheet from page 140.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, it's just a matter of taste as far as the orientation, I think. I prefer the quad only because the actual artwork seems to take up more of the actual space, and I'm okay with that. I will say the best representation of that artwork, in my opinion, is actually from the Swedish one that we did not include because it's not in English. It's because they went and put the background in black. And I think the picture just pops even so much more against the black than it does against the white. And it's the same exact artwork. They just put it on a black background instead of a white background, but I like it on that black background even more. But no, the artwork is fantastic, and that's why it ended up in our top 3, me at 3, you at 2. And then, of course, my number 2 will go right back to the one that you had at number 3, which means we might have very similar choices for number 1. But my number 2 was specifically the A version US 1 sheet of Moonraker from page 179. For all the reasons you said, plus I also really like one of the details that really got me about this particular poster. First of all, yeah, you have Jaws not only behind Bond coming to attack him, but he's floating weightless towards Bond about to attack him. But also, I love the way they kind of elongated the port, the skylight in the space station, if you will, to where it's vaguely reminiscent of the gun barrel design. That, to me, is what put it over the edge and popped it all the way up to number 2. Just that little detail of the way they kind of elongated the picture just enough to give it that feel. But everything else is fantastic. Like you said, you've got Bond in a spacesuit, but in the classic gun barrel pose. You've got the girls, you've got the villains, everybody looks how they're supposed to look. The artwork takes up the entire poster. It is just absolutely brilliantly done, and that's why it ended up at number 2 for me.
All right, that leaves only one film, which I am not shocked that both of us have the same film. The only question for me is, did you pick the exact same version I did or not?
Let's find out. Obviously, for both of our number 1s, the only movie left is For Your Eyes Only. So which poster from For Your Eyes Only did you pick as your best Bond poster ever?
I picked, and in fact, I am very proud to say, I own this poster. Not even a reprint. I own an original rolled version of this poster, never folded. The U.S. Advance on page 189. And that is the version, of course, the one thing that's common to all of these that makes this not only the iconic James Bond poster, but one of the iconic posters ever. And this caused a lot of heat, a lot of controversy, banned in several places by some really, really prudish people I don't want to know.
Yeah, I noticed there was a slightly different version below that is just not good.
But this poster, you have the very, very sexy legs, which there was a lot of discussion of who was this person. There was this lady on Jeopardy who it might have been. Who could this be? Finally, the model identified herself. But it's just legs and high heels, and you can see very much ass in this picture. Not enough to be nude. She's wearing a swimsuit, but enough ass in the picture that you had a lot of people complaining about it, silly people. And she's holding the crossbow at it, just casually off to the side, but very much ready. And the version of the poster that I chose, because there's two versions of this particular part. It's on the top, it says, "No one comes close to James Bond 007. And then when you look straight on between her legs, because that's the way the camera's focused, you see James Bond, and he's caught by surprise.
Oh, no.
And that's what I love about this poster. I mean, aside from just the, oh yeah, bring on the sexy of it, she got the drop on him. And that is, to me, that makes this poster. That's just fabulous. And then below that, the frame turns from black to red. You have the 007 logo going across 3 times, and then you have the credits over red. Yeah. But just that sexy between the leg shot with the crossbow, getting the drop on James Bond. This is not just, to me, the single best James Bond poster ever, but it is one of the top 5 movie posters ever from any genre at all, period. This is just an awesome poster to me. I love this poster. It's just great.
It is a fantastic poster. And I do like the fact that in that particular version, Bond is being, like you said, like caught by surprise. He's like sneaking around, and then he looks over and like, oh, I've been caught. Whereas in most of the other posters, he's doing the traditional gun forward pose where it almost seems like he was ready. I didn't pick that same poster, though. And that would be definitely my runner-up. And the only thing that stops the poster that I did choose from being one of my favorite posters ever would definitely be just that change in pose. If you'd put Roger Moore's Bond in that pose on this poster that I like, it would have been even 10 times better. But the one I chose, just flip one page back to pages 186 and 187 in the book, and it is the UK quad version from For Your Eyes Only. This is the one you have still the legs and the butt and the crossbow, and you have Bond in the center. This one, he is in the classic gun forward pose, but then on either side of the legs, you've got some drawn action scenes from the movie. You've got some underwater stuff on the left hand side, and then you've got the some ski slope stuff, say that 10 times fast, on the right hand side, including a helicopter and the Citroen 2CV running around. I love the fact that you've got the focal point of the poster being the legs and Bond, but you also have some great artwork portraying the movie as well, and that's what pushed this one over the top for me. If I'd have chosen the same one that you chose, it probably would have cracked the top 5, but it definitely would have been number 1. Just not enough going on for me, and not symbolic enough to make me love it for that. But this one, it's got everything that I love about the other poster, but then it's also got this great artwork attached to it as well. So that's why I had to choose the UK quad version.
For me, when I look at the UK quad version, I get the collage vomit feel. And Bond, at that point, because he's in now the gun barrel stance where he's got the gun pointed, except now it's pointed off to the side, and that doesn't really look like Roger Moore. And actually almost looks like James Brolin, which is kind of frightening because they were thinking about getting him for this movie. And when I look at the helicopter, I'm not convinced that it's drawn. If it's drawn very well because it almost looks like they threw a photo in there. It's just too busy for me. And I understand where you're coming from, but I like the simplicity of the Advance. And I think the bonding necessity for the movie comes out with the crossbow. The crossbow's enough. But I get where you're coming from. It's just, again, place where we have very different opinions. And you very much surprised me, sir, with this one.
Well, ha ha ha. No, I dig this poster. And again, this is also one of those movies that holds a lot of intrinsic value for me because it was the first Bond movie I ever saw. And, part of the reason that I popped it in that first time was because that picture, those legs, I was like, ooh, all right. I'm pretty sure they used the regular US one sheet as the cover art on the VHS as well.
I remember they did.
Yeah.
Except instead of the Advance like I picked where he's got the drop on her, where she's got the drop on him, it's the one where he's got the gun forward again.
Yeah. But it was still those legs that originally drew me to this movie, so...
And they've, of course, been imitated many times. You see this kind of ripped off in the Living Daylights poster I mentioned, and this has been ripped off by a ton of movies afterward. Like there's a version of The Transporter, for example, where the poster is done very much like this. We have Jason Statham firing 2 guns shot between legs. But, no, for me, wow, just awesome poster.
Yes, absolutely. I would be proud to own either one of these, and it's awesome that you actually have one of the originals of that U.S. Advance. That's pretty dang special.
That is, I would say, probably one of the 2 luckiest poster finds I ever had. And I was very, very glad to have it, and still am very glad to have it. So, so that is our top James Bond poster list. Do you have anything more you want to say about those before we move on to the bottom 007?
No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think we covered everything pretty well. Obviously, as we said, there's a lot of posters that we didn't talk about because of whatever reasons they didn't qualify in our list. So definitely check out this book. This book is so awesome. It's got so much great artwork and so much information about some of the artwork that I didn't even know beforehand. So I highly recommend checking out that book. And again, if you're listening to us anywhere other than HerMajesty'sPod.com, just go ahead and shoot on over to HerMajesty'sPod.com, click on this episode, and you will find the link to this. You'll find a link to some of the pictures that we've been talking about, as well as a link to this actual book that you can purchase. So do that.
That book is, again, James Bond, 50 Years of Movie Posters, and it was put together by Dennis Gassner, production designer from Quantum of Solace onward.
Awesome. So now that brings us to the second part of our episode.
Yes, the bottom 007 movie posters.
We talked about the best. Now it's time to talk about the rest.
And what did Raven have to say about her least favorite?
Raven said that her least favorite, and this is where you might have some words with her. She actually picked the same GoldenEye poster, I believe, that you picked as your best. I'm just going to take a quick look at the image she sent to make sure it's the one with the...
But she didn't.
She picked the one with the full color faces. Okay.
Yep.
So that does make a little bit of a difference, but it does still have... here's what she said. And she picked the GoldenEye poster that has the 3 faces, but in full color, and then everything else is the same as the previous poster. She said, "This is my least favorite Bond poster because it doesn't have that fun that the other posters have. They just kind of slapped some photos together and called it a day. At least with the newer ones, there's some style and character to the poster. This totally screams 90s, and I can't take Pierce Brosnan's action face seriously."
And the thing is, I agree with her. It's one of those where when you have it with the full color photo faces, it doesn't work anymore. But when you have it with the gold tone, one, Pierce Brosnan's in a different pose now. And it doesn't look as much like in the picture that she said, that she's looking at. He looks like he really, really, really has to use the bathroom, and he's really annoyed that you're holding it up. Whereas in the version that I was looking at, it's more of a straight-up action shot. He's pointing the gun forward. It's just your standard Bond pose. And again, the gold tone makes it more artistic. It kind of washes away the photo vomit thing. It gives it something. But yeah, as soon as you take that gold tone away and you give the Pierce Brosnan pose that's in this version, I agree with her. It's terrible. It's not my least favorite, but I agree with her. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's definitely not a great poster, and I agree with most of what you said. Like I said, this is one of those ones that I did not like the action collage on that one. It was a little too cluttered and not organized in such a way that it drew my attention in any particular order. It was just kind of all there. And even though I love the movie, I just can't get behind that poster, especially with the faces in full color like that, because it does draw so much attention away, and just really doesn't work as well as the version with the sepia faces that you liked.
So with that in mind, thank you very much, Raven. We really appreciate your weighing in for us. We like having the guest opinion, and please visit her site at ravencruise.com, and that is C-R-U-Z, if you're wondering how to spell cruise. Make sure to check her out.
Absolutely, yeah. She does fantastic work. In fact, in the very near future, you're going to see some of her work on our very site, as well as on the 4-Eyed Radio page. She did a wonderful new logo for the 4-Eyed Radio Network. I just have not had the time to go through, and because I want to revamp everything that uses the old logo at the same time and throw it all out there together, and I have not had the time to sit down and do all that yet. But in the very near future, you will see some of Raven Design's wonderful work on our websites.
Indeed. Now, as far as stuff that's not so wonderful, what do you have as your number 007 on the bottom 007 movie posters list?
For me, number 7. Now, keep in mind, I did pick a least favorite from every single movie. And some of the ones that ended up at the top of this list were ones that I actually did like. I just didn't like them as much as other ones from that same movie. But coming down to the top 10, and especially the top 7, these were posters that I just really did not like. And most of them were due to a lot of them were just due to just being just straight boring. And a boring poster does not inspire me to watch a movie. There's a difference between being simplistic and impactful and being just simplistic. And some of them were just too much, just blah. This one kind of falls into that category. This one, it has some stuff, but it's just blah. And the composition is just blah and bad. And that would be, if you turn to page 173 in your book, you will see the UK quad for The Spy Who Loved Me. This one is, the entire background is teal, not quite sure why. You've got the gun barrel design, sort of, in orange or reddish, with The Spy Who Loved Me, and a tiny little silhouette of what I'm assuming we're supposed to assume is Bond. I don't know. Then you've got some black and white stills from the movie. Nothing really exciting here going on. But what really gets me is the typography here. You've got, again, with the 4-dot ellipsis, which drives me nuts. I mean, what is that? Period, ellipsis period? I don't understand. But ellipsis period in the biggest Bond of all. And then, but that cuts across the gun barrel design, and they don't continue it in the spaces, and it looks like it's just set on top, like somebody literally cut it out of something else and pasted it on top. And then the gun barrel design just stops at the edge of the photos that they put on the side. I mean, this really looks like a cheaply put together flyer of some sort, and it would not attract me to watch this movie in any way, shape, or form. It's just blah.
I completely agree with you. In fact, if it hadn't been placed amongst sets of posters that we disqualified, I might have thrown this on the list, but I missed that because it's in the middle of door panels and inserts, so I just missed seeing it as being one that qualified. But I understand. It looks terrible. Yeah, I can't disagree with you at all.
Yeah, it just looks like it cheesily put together. Like it looks like somebody did it, not even in actual, like, graphic design whatsoever. It looks like somebody just took some pictures and pasted them together and then photocopied it out. It's bad.
It is bad.
So what cracks your top 7 bad poster list?
Well, for me, the 7 bad poster list is comprised of 2 different sets of things. That is, as you just mentioned, boring. And actually, based on some of your choices for not boring, I'm kind of leery of your description thereof. And then there's the anger section.
Anger section. This poster makes me angry. I did have, as I used qualifications to rank my good posters, I also used qualifications to rank my bad posters. And instead of using the same qualifications and just going for the lowest scores, I actually changed qualifications altogether and went for the highest scores of my new qualifications. I went with, does it hurt to look at? The unbondinessosity, another term I'm coining. I went with boring, ? And ugly, ? So, yes, the anger, it comes somewhere in that hurts to look at category for me, I think.
Now, for me, my number 007 falls into the boring category. In fact, this used to be my standard bearer for the threshold of, is a poster boring or not? And I would set it up against this poster. And if it was as boring as this poster, it was boring. And that is, on page 238 of our book, the US 1 sheet for License to Kill, which is boring. It basically has Timothy Dalton in the gun barrel pose at the center of the picture, and then off to one side you have the picture of Robert Davi as Sanchez. It's just his face, all in kind of orange, coming out of an explosion, which takes up the bottom where the credits are. All white space on the other side, and then smack in the middle, for no apparent reason, a publicity shot of the two Bond girls. Boring. It's like somebody tried, they thought, well, if we put fire in there, it's action and explosion, right?
Exactly.
But it's the best word I have for this, it's corporate. It has no soul. James Brown would deny this picture.
No, I can't disagree with you. I do not like this poster. And if it weren't for how bad another poster from this movie is, this one could very well have made my list as well. But I think that this particular movie had an even worse example of poster work, so it didn't quite make it. But we'll talk about that in a little bit.
It's a close thing between this and the quad that I picked as the best one for this movie. But I don't like that one either. And the only thing I think that made a difference is that this one, the US 1 sheet, is so aggressively boring. Whereas the quad, it sucked, but at least I felt something about it, whereas this is aggressively boring. And the aggressive boredom put it on the bottom for me. So that's why it is number 007 on my bottom 007 list.
All right. Totally fair. Like I said, I do not like that poster either. I just thought there was worse from that particular movie, but we'll talk about that in a few spots here. What about number 6 for you?
Number 6, it's more of the aggressively gives me a headache. And that would be the UK quad on page 255 from Tomorrow Never Dies. Holy crap, what a difference some coloration and change of angle make. I mean, I literally can't look at this picture for very long because I do start getting a headache from it. Instead of the muted red in the background, we now have the television screen blue hue, and it hurts to look at. It really hurts to look at. And then for some reason you have a car jumping out of the screen and a motorcycle jumping out of the screen, which don't make sense. And the angle of the screens, they're not straight on. They're now doing a reverse Star Wars opening credits crawl in terms of the direction they go. They start up wide at the top and narrow down toward the bottom. And Pierce Brosnan doing his I got to go to the bathroom face. And even the pose of Terry Hatcher, which you can tell is exactly the same one I liked from the other poster. It's just the negative is reversed because she's just at the different angle, but otherwise it's the same picture. Yeah. They just reversed the negative.
They reversed it, and I think they drew it out a little bit because she's almost following the line of the TV screens as well. And so you're right, it's the same picture, but they've done something to it that makes it not good anymore.
And the color of her dress gets washed out by that vomit blue on the TV screens, so she's no longer the sexy. It's just, I don't even want to look at this poster anymore to talk about it. I just don't like this poster. And it's subtle differences, but they change everything.
Yes.
So whereas the other one was middle of the road, it worked. It had some good stuff, had some okay stuff, just by changing the orientation, the angles, the color, moving a couple of things around. I mean, you could Photoshop one of these posters into the other with, as long as you had all the base elements, you could Photoshop one to the other in just a few minutes. But what they do to the quad, I just can't stand looking at it. I hate it.
Yeah.
So
it's bad.
It's my number 6. What about for you, sir?
For me, number 6, we're going to go back to another one of those movies that we love to make fun of, especially me, because I really just don't like looking at it. You not so much. You seem to enjoy it a little bit more than I do, but that would be from Never Say Never Again. This one, I'm picking the US 1 sheet. Everything that I thought was okay about the other one, they've ruined in this one. The US 1 sheet for Never Say Never Again, this is on page 208, if you're following along in the book of James Bond, 50 Years of Movie Posters. They've made Connery look even older somehow. like they did nothing to make him look a little bit nicer. And some of the other ones in the UK quad and even in the US insert that you can see right on the next page, they've softened the wrinkles a little bit. In this one, they've bumped up the contrast. And they're like, look, Sean Connery is old. They could have put that on the tagline instead of the 007. And
Bond, aged Bond.
Now, normally, I like when they do funny things with the typography to make the 007 cool, but this, it just doesn't work. They've taken the 007 and turned it into dual gun sights. Dual gun sights? That's not a thing. You have one gun sight. Take one of the zeros and make it a gun sight, okay, but you've done it with both of them. It doesn't work. It makes me angry. I don't like looking at it. You've also taken the one thing I really liked from the other one, which was that fishy font, and gotten rid of that, and just gone with a straight, blocky font in brown with a red stroke around it, which just looks awful. Everything about this poster screams, this is a horrible movie, don't watch me. And that's why it made my number 6 on the bottom of the barrel list.
I can't disagree. It was my number 8. So, totally understand. So what do you have for your number 5, sir?
Moving to number 5. This is, again, going back to the boring, just way too simple and not impactful at all to me. And that is going all the way back to page number 5. And that is the Dr. No poster, specifically the UK Advance poster of Dr. No. That is just Dr. No, 007. That's it. And then it has a bullet and a tube of lipstick. What am I supposed to get from this? Does James Bond wear lipstick when he shoots people? Does he shoot lipstick?
He does.
The only cool thing is the 007, then you've got the gun in front of it. Like, that's the only cool imagery, but even that isn't that cool because, again, we've got the Luger here. And James Bond doesn't shoot a Luger. I dislike this poster. First of all, it's bright yellow with just black lettering, bright in the center, Dr. No. And then 007, gun in front of the 007, gun silhouette in front of the 007. And then you've got this bullet and lipstick. And I don't understand what I'm supposed to be seeing here. It just doesn't speak to me at all other than just, hey, look, here's a word. I don't like it at all. And that's why it made my number 5.
All right. Now, for my number 5, this is one of the ones I warned you we were going to disagree about. See, the License to Kill poster that I mentioned used to be my standard for boring, lazy, didn't even try. Whereas now, my number 5 is my new standard of boring, lazy, didn't even try. It's not in the book. It is, take your pick, the International Advance, the US Advance, or the US release of Skyfall, which we will also see on the cover of the Blu-ray. It's just a plain white sheet of paper with the 007 symbol and Daniel Craig lying on his back shooting a gun and credits. Yay, boring. You could have done this in 5 minutes.
They probably did.
And the thing is, somebody got paid more money than most people who are listening to this show make in a year to do this. And I'm sorry, I look at this and I think, you lazy ass, do something. You have so much to do with this movie, and you pick this? This is boring crap. Do something.
I will admit, I agree with most of what you're saying, but for some reason the poster does... Now, I agree they could have done so much more with Skyfall. There was so much there. The movie was so rich with so many different things they could have gone with. I mean, just Skyfall itself, just the actual place. Put that on a poster somewhere, for crying out loud. But this one, of all of them, it was the one that spoke to me the most, and then the more I looked at it, the more it spoke to me, which is really weird because it is very, very simple and very, very, like you said, probably lazy. It was probably just a real quick, like, here's some shots we have. Oh, this one. Here we go. And then, boom, done. But for some reason, it still does speak to me a little bit, and it makes me excited to watch the movie. Like, I see that picture, and I'm like, ooh, I gotta watch Skyfall again.
See, the only reason that I look at this poster and want to see the movie is because I know it's a Bond movie. It's one of those where, okay, the fact that it's a Bond movie is making me want to see the movie, whereas looking at the poster in general, it turns me off. If it wasn't for a Bond movie, I probably wouldn't see the movie based on this, because it's so lazy and so boring. And if I look at a poster and I see that this little effort went into it, what does that tell me about the effort that was put into making the movie? Especially considering that marketing budgets now often exceed production budgets. So this to me, it's the height in laziness. And if it weren't for something else that's slightly lazier on a different score and 3 things that make me angry, I'm amazed that this is only my number 5 and not further down the list, because I really hate this poster.
Fair enough.
But,
fair enough.
now that we've got what they used to call it in the book 1984, the 2 minutes hate out of the way, what do you have for your number 4 poster, sir?
Moving to number 4 is one that we've already spoken about, but I'm going to get into a little bit more detail here, and that would be From License to Kill, the UK quad. I hate this poster so much. It is so awful. If you're following along in the book, turn back to page 236 and 237. This is the cheaply thrown together Photoshop version of a poster. There's so many things about this poster that make me angry. The one good thing is the truck exploding. I'm like, okay, you got a truck exploding, good for you. But then you have the bad guy who is, I'm sorry, I'm sure he's a great actor and he's probably a decent person and everything, but he's an ugly dude. Okay, he's not a good guy to look at. It's not something fun to look at. His is the biggest face on the poster. Why is his face bigger than Bond's? This is a Bond movie. Yes, Bond is separate and you get a whole body shot instead of just his head and shoulders, whatever, but...
And Bond is walking on water, for Christ's sake.
He's Jesus. But no, the Bond should be equal to or bigger than any other face on a poster. And in this case, he is not. The bad guy... Oh, the lizard's face is almost bigger than Bond's face on this poster. And then you've got the girls just in the background, just hanging out there. I mean, the 2 of the most boring Bond girls to begin with, and they're just back there. Then you've got this weird shadow 007 just across there, like somebody like, oh crap, we forgot to put 007 in there. There you go. So much blank space unused. You've got all this action down in the lower right-hand corner, and then nothing on the left-hand side or the top except for Bond running. And he's wearing all black on dark blue water. You can't even see his bottom half practically unless you look really, really closely.
But the interns thought that was innovative.
This poster makes me angry. I don't like it at all. It bugs me. And there's so many, like I said, it's too much clumped up over here, not enough over here. You've got this guy's face is too big compared to everybody else's face. It's just a bad... This poster would make me actively not want to watch this movie. And that is a very bad thing, considering this movie is good. You want people to watch this movie because it actually is good, but yet almost all the posters they made for it are atrocious. Like I said, the one that I picked as the best of this group is still not a good poster. It's just not as offensive as this one. This one is just... Blah.
And I agree with you. That's why Only Die Another Day could make me feel less appeal than this one on the top list, and it's because I had to pick a top one, not because I wanted to. So I understand completely.
So that is my number 4.
Now, my number 4, we have already talked about, and I questioned your judgment. And that would be on page 308 of the book. Take your pick, UK Advance, US Advance, International Advance, they were all the same, for Quantum of Solace, where all you see is a cracked monochrome desert floor and the shadow of some man, we're supposed to assume it's 007, but we can't really, holding up a machine gun. And then it just says 007 November 2008. Boring. And not only is it boring, it doesn't tell you the name of the movie, and Bond does... Yes, Bond had a machine gun at the end of that one movie. That was it. And Bond doesn't belong with machine guns. Just no. He's used them, but they don't have bondinessosity.
They don't.
And so when I see some just shadow of some guy with a machine gun, I'm thinking G.I. Joe, some American thing. I am not thinking James Bond. You can throw the 007 at the bottom there all you want. I'm still not thinking James Bond. And if it weren't for the shape of the guy's head, it might not even be Daniel Craig. In fact, it still might not be Daniel Craig. This is as un-Bond of a Bond poster as you can possibly get. And it says nothing about the movie, including the title. So to me, this poster just sucks. This is I like the artistic use of shadow. As a piece of art, I'm with you. I like the use of shadow, but when I throw it into the context of Bond, this sucks. I give it a squat, or at least I put it in the number 4 position.
No, I understand what you're saying, but like I said, for me, I love the use of the shadow. I do get some Bondinosity off of it. The gun, no. And the more I'm looking at the other poster here, I'm pretty sure that's a silenced MP5. But either way, it's not a Walther, it's not even a Beretta, it's not even a handgun, it's not even the Target Luger that we see in so many of the older posters. It's obviously an assault rifle. But what we do see in this shadow is that it's obviously a man who is not only carrying the gun, but he's obviously walking. Even just in the shadow, you can see that he's just walking, and he's calmly walking with a purpose, which is very Bond-like. He's not running away from something, he's not running towards something, he's not, haggard or frightened or anything like that. His other arm is just relaxed. Yes, he's got the gun up in one hand. You also see the shadow of the jacket opening up, meaning he's wearing a suit, which is also very Bond-like. So I see a lot more in this shadow than even I get out of some of the other Quantum of Solace posters. And I just see the way they've done the black and white here, the grayscale that they've used. I dig it. I dig it.
He's there's walking with a purpose, but it needs more cowbell.
Fair enough. Like I said, that's what's great about these lists, man. They're so subjective. I mean, I had this poster fairly high on my list. It was my top 10. It was number 9. And you've got it in your worst of the worst.
And I'm not going to be completely specific, but, okay, look at how that jacket is blowing out to the side. Now, imagine that this is a profile picture of a woman, and try looking at that jacket the same way again.
Damn you, Ziggy, how dare you. Bond's got a nice big set of jacket tail there. All right.
So, that's why that is at number 4 of my worst of the worst list.
Okay.
Now, moving on to number 3.
Are you going to break my heart some more? No, I'm just kidding.
I doubt it. I really doubt it. I think you'll agree with me on this one. Composition-wise, this is actually better than some of the ones I've mentioned already, but on the anger scale, it just skyrockets. So from page 263 of the book, the U.S. one-sheet advanced style B for Die Another Day, where you basically have the title over 007, and you have James Bond and Jinx on equal footing. Bullshit. No, this is not a buddy Bond movie. It's like, when I read Roger Moore's memoir, there was one Bond girl who he didn't name. I think I figured out who it is, but he didn't name her, so I don't know. And she had asked the director for a certain scene, why does she have to walk behind James Bond? And the director replied, because he's James Bloody Bond. That's why. And I look at this poster and, yeah, okay, she's on the inside, not the outside, but I don't care. That's a buddy cop movie poster. Halle Berry got way more exposure off that movie than she needed, that the character deserved. She was horrible. The character was horrible. Just seeing those two on equal footing makes me angry. Yeah. And it also, knowing that somebody wanted to do a Jinx spinoff, that poster looks like the teaser for, hey, if you like this, we'll make it a spinoff. And just knowing that, just screw you. I hate you, poster. Die. Don't die another day. Die now.
Die now. Die another day. Die the day after that as well.
So U.S. One Sheet's Advanced Style B from page 263 from Die Another Day. My third worst Bond poster.
Yes. I think it's 283, just to make sure. If you're following along at home.
I did a typo again. I'm sorry.
That's all right. The only reason I know is because that happened to be my number 13 on this particular list. So it didn't quite make the top 7, but the same poster is the one I chose from this movie as the worst of this particular movie, and for that same reason, because you don't see anything about this movie other than evidently this chick and Bond are equal in this film. They're both got the same look on their face, they're both pointing a gun in the same way. Everything about this poster screams these two are equals, and it's a Bond movie. Bond doesn't have equals in that sense. He might have, contemporaries, maybe, but not equals like that, and especially not Jinx. Anyway, so I understand the anger factor. It didn't accost my senses enough to make my top 7, but it's definitely not a good poster.
So what do you have for your number 3, sir?
Coming in at number 3 is a Another UK quad release that just is, to me, boring as sin and too wordy. Much too wordy for me. If you turn to page 230 in the James Bond 50 Years of Movie Posters, you see the UK quad release for The Living Daylights. This poster is just black background. You've got these two red stripes going at angles at the top that says Bond is back in action in The Living Daylights. The Living Daylights is done in some sort of font that does not portray Bond to me at all. I'm trying to, I can't identify the font off the top of my head, but it's not good. And then it's got the 007 with the barrel and trigger logo on the right side. That's probably the only okay part of this entire poster. Then you've got just a circle in the center with wall of text. Bond is back in action. Blah, 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 blah. It's a poster. Show me. Don't tell me. If I want to read about it, I'll read an article. I'll read a review. I'll read the book or something if it's out in a book. I don't want a book on the poster. This is too much. And then the only pictures you do have are some black and white images on the bottom, and then they've got some. Originally, I thought just very, very poor quality stills from the movie, but the notation does indicate that those are meant to be poor quality because they're just meant to be placeholders for the movie theater to actually put good quality stills from the movie in those spots. But to me, that makes it even worse. I mean, this poster is designed for you to paste stuff on it.
That's not cool.
So for me, that's why this one made it all the way to top 3, because I look at this, and again, it's another example of a poster that makes me actively not want to watch this movie. And this is a movie that can't afford that. This is a good movie that people should watch, and this poster does not do a good job of portraying that in any way, shape, or form. I mean, you compare that to the artwork that I love, which you can see right on the next page because they used that same artwork from the other UK quad for the Japanese one sheet. I mean, which of these two posters are going to make you want to watch this movie? Come on now. But yeah, Living Daylights UK quad, crappy version. That's my number 3.
Understandable, and can't fault you for it. Not on my list, but it belongs there. It's just for certain prejudicial factors that it's not there. Now, my number 2 on my list, I questioned your judgment on, sir. And that was on page 112, the U.S. one-sheet advance for On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the crappiest ad campaign I can think, well, not quite the crappiest, but one of them that I can possibly think of, where you have the picture of, you can tell it's George Lazenby physically if you've seen stuff afterwards, but where his face is totally obscured. Mm-hmm. And where his face is, it's James Bond 007 is back. And the specific point of this ad campaign was because Connery was gone, they wanted to make it so it doesn't matter who plays Bond, so who cares what he looks like. And then that portrait is surrounded by a bevy of women who do not appear in the movie. You'll notice that all of the women at Piz Gloria had short hair, except for 1 or 2, and these are all long-haired beauties, but none of whom love chickens.
You don't know that. They might all love the chickens.
True, they might have been with the chickens, who knows? But just the idea that you can put writing over Bond's face and not have Bond's face there, it's bad marketing, it's laziness, and to me, it's just crap or get off the pot. If you're not going to stand behind your Bond, then you shouldn't have cast him to begin with. If you think that it matters that little, then maybe you didn't need to make the movie. It's just this whole ad campaign of it doesn't matter who it is, and so we can just plug and play anyone. Even slasher movies know better than that nowadays, where it's not just that any old stuntman can put on a mask and go. I mean, some movies have tried it, and they found it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. This is saying that James Bond can operate under that same theory, which, of course, this movie proved is crap. You can't do that. They can't just take a used car salesman and throw him in there, even with Diana Rigg to help him out. And I look at this poster, and again, I'm just angry at it. I want to use it as a dartboard. I wouldn't do that because, 1, I don't deface art, and 2, this poster's worth too much money if you have a real one. But I just freaking hate this poster. I hate everything it stands for. I hate the marketing, the laziness, everything about it. Just screw you, poster.
Now, like I said, when I mentioned this one I chose as the best for this movie, but it was at the very, very bottom of my list, remember, because I do not like the poster. I just really don't like the other posters from On Her Majesty's Secret Service because I see his face and it reminds me that they did it at all. At least with this one, I can look at it and at least I'm like, okay, I can enjoy the women and I can enjoy they've got the Bond logo, the 007 with the barrel and trigger. They've got that twice on the poster, so I'm like, I can enjoy that. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Am I counting right? Did I skip someone? Nope, 8. Beautiful women in bikinis. Yes, they didn't appear in the movies, but hey, whatever. That's okay with me. Neither did redheaded Diana Rigg with gigantic bazoombas from the other On Her Majesty's Secret Service posters, so I think it's fair. It's not a good poster at all. I'm not trying to defend it as a good poster. It makes me less angry than the posters where I can actually see Lazenby's face, because his face makes me more angry than this poster does.
Fair enough. So, what makes you more angry at number 2?
At my number 2, it's one of the worst posters I think I've seen for a movie. This is just cheese on top of cheese with a side order of cheese, and it's bad, bad, bad. This is the UK quad for Your Eyes Only. It's on page 191 of the book. This one has all black and white images from the movie. The main focal image, I'll start there, even though there's other things about this poster that piss me off. The main focal image of this poster is Bond with another man standing over him about ready to knock him down a mountain. You don't put Bond in a position of weakness as your focal point of a Bond movie poster. That's a horrible idea. You put Bond in a position of strength. You put him pointing a gun at you. You put him, in action or something like that. You want to include this picture? Fine, but you make it smaller. This picture should not be the focal point of this poster. You also have a picture of him kissing. Okay, fine. You've got a couple of bad guys over here. You've got a guy on the phone. You've got some other stuff. You do have the Bond girl with her crossbow. That's the only good picture on the poster. And then they ruin it by putting little text blurbs all over the place in these little boxes with cropped corners. And on top of her it says, "A crossbow makes a handy weapon." What? Are you kidding me? This whole poster is covered with little blurbs. They've got Bond kissing. Everyone's got to relax sometime. They've got the bad guys over here. These men are dangerous. Bond must watch his step. And then it's got him in bed with another girl. Time for love or a double cross. And of course the focal picture of Bond climbing up the mountain and then being about to kick down. Bond's just had an exhausting climb. Now someone wants to kick him back. I hate this poster so very much. Again, it's another poster that actively would make me want to not watch the movie. And it is a good movie. It's a fun movie. Yes, a crossbow does make a handy weapon. Because it's designed to be a weapon. You don't call something a handy weapon that's designed to be a weapon. You call something a handy weapon that's not designed to be a weapon, like when I talked about this book itself being large enough to be used as a weapon should you need it. That would be handy. If you were walking down the street with this book and somebody attacked you, you'd be like, oh, look, I have this handy giant book to beat you with. A crossbow is a weapon, so of course it's going to be a handy weapon. You don't have to tell me about it on the poster. Oh, it's horrible.
I will say 2 things.
Yes.
1, I agree with everything you're saying. There is a very good reason I didn't pick this on my list, but it belongs there. But there's a good reason it's not there. And 2, if you want to bring your blood pressure down just a little bit, imagine Crow T Robot is reading all the captions.
It's just so bad. Oh, I gotta change. I gotta turn the page. I'm turning the page now because I can't look at it anymore.
Fair enough. All right, so what angers you the most at your number 1 worst bottom 007 movie poster?
Now, this one is... I think I misread the page as well, because I'm not sure if these... my number 1 might not even count on our list. What exactly is a double crown?
That would be a different size UK poster that we did not include. However, go for it anyway.
I just realized that this wasn't a one-sheet. I'm like, I could have sworn this was a one-sheet. I'm like, this is dumb. This is just boring as crap. Tell me something about the movie. This one is just text. Nothing but text. It is the From Russia with Love UK Double Crown. It just says, Harry Saltzman and R. Broccoli present Ian Fleming's From Russia with Love, starring Sean Connery as James Bond. Oh, it's in Technicolor. That's fantastic. Why isn't the poster in Technicolor? It's blue and red lettering on a white background. How is this supposed to make me want to watch the movie? It tells me nothing. I don't get a tagline. I don't get a picture. I get nothing, and it's saddening and disheartening.
Fair enough.
That was the one I came across. I'm like, this was really... They put this up somewhere?
Well, that's my feeling about my number one as well.
Okay.
And it is the reason that the one that you had at your number two could not be on my list, because otherwise it would have been there. And it is the subtle difference between sublime greatness and absolute crap. And this particular poster would not only make me question seeing the movie, but more than that, in fact, much more than that, would make me question seeing movies anywhere within 100 miles of where I saw this poster. Because it tells me less about the movie than it does about the climate of the area where this movie is being released. And that would be, on page 189 of our book, the censored U.S. advance release of the For Your Eyes Only poster. The exact same poster that I said was my favorite James Bond poster ever and rested somewhere in the top 5 movie posters ever. As soon as you hand draw a shitty pair of Daisy Dukes on that.
That's the best part, is that they're like drawn on like cartoon style. They're not even like drawn on realistically. They're like cartoonish jean shorts drawn over them. It's awful. It's 100% awful. I agree with you. It takes what was a great poster and turns it into something you wouldn't even want to be around.
It's just absolute crap. And yet for these stuffy people, and they're specifying for this poster Pennsylvania and Utah, and the poster was also
the Pennsylvania part surprises me slightly, but other than that, I'm not shocked.
This poster was also banned the regular poster was also banned in some other areas. In fact, the movie was given a worse classification because of the poster, not because of anything in the movie, but just the poster in some areas, including, I believe, Saskatchewan, which is weird. But just, I find the censorship on this poster blatantly offensive, and just, it's everything. It's so much of what I hate about censorship culture. If you don't like it, then don't put it up. And if the people who are distributing your film or showing your film say, we are not going to put up this poster, then you as a studio have to do one of two things. Either have the balls to say, well, then you don't have to show our movie, which I understand why they didn't, or at least come up with something else, even if it's a boring-ass thing that's just text that says For Your Eyes Only. Just not this. This drawn-on Daisy Dukes crap. Just vomit.
It's so blatantly obvious. If they'd at least taken a picture of Daisy Dukes and put them on there, it would be slightly less offensive. It'd still be pretty bad, but at least it would be, the rest of the picture in these posters is photorealistic. It's not like the one that I picked where it's actually, done in a drawing style. Whether or not they took pictures and just made them drawing style is in question. I'd have to read more about it. But this is an obviously cartoony, drawn-on pair of shorts onto a real bum and legs. It's just dumb.
I understand where the possible idea is coming from, is that they thought they had the same anger I do at the studio and thought it was so ridiculous that they met ridiculous with ridiculous. But I just can't go with it. It's selling out. It's bad. It looks terrible. It's basically the same thing as if you took a wonderful piece of art that was displayed on a wall in the street somewhere and defaced it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Now, the fortunate part is that in this day and age, with mass-produced images like posters, there's still plenty of the real thing out there. But it's like painting a mustache on the Mona Lisa. I mean, no. In fact, it's more of painting a mustache on the Mona Lisa is less offensive. So
it would be like painting a cartoony jockstrap on the David.
Yes. Or painting a bra on Venus. Just no. So that horrendous dumbass censorship, literally dumbass censorship, is why I have to vote the Bowdlerized version of what was my favorite poster as my least favorite. So there we have it, our list.
All right. Do you have any of the particular images from the book that we did not discuss, any of the international releases or anything like that you specifically want to bring up or point out?
There are so many great pieces of art in that book. I'm just going to go again and strongly suggest, and not just because it helps us out if you click the link, but just if you love the Bond movies, which I'm assuming you do because you're listening to our show, and particularly if you love really good movie poster art, this book is worth getting. James Bond, 50 Years of Movie Posters. Go to Amazon, go to your bookstore, click on the link, pick it up. It is definitely one of the most awesome, quote-unquote, coffee table style books you'll ever find. It is just magnificent to look at. You can spend hours and hours, days and days. Trust me, Eric and I have done this. Just going through this book, there's so much beautiful art in here, and the captions tell you stories about it. And I'll just give you a little bit of a taste. One picture in particular, it's one of the first ones you see, and it's shocking, actually, if you consider when and of what it is. When you first open the book and you get to the folio page where it tells you that consulting editor was Dennis Gassner and that the text was written by Alistair Dougal. When you look at the poster that's covering 2/3 of the spot, it's an unused piece of concept art from Thunderball with just a blood-red canvas, a completely naked Sean Connery as Bond on a massage table,
nice
holding the gun up with just this ecstatic masseuse with an open shirt that's barely containing her chest. And it's just, this is from 1965? You can see why it wasn't used, but on the other hand, like Eric and I were saying, out of the Thunderball art, those three pieces, the weakest one was the one with the bevy of ladies. Replace this with that, and hey. But just, wow, that just jumps out at you. And not just in, the, hey, there's skin sense, but also that, think of when this is. That's shocking. Mm-hmm. So, just one standout piece of art amongst many in that book.
Yes. The one thing that I would really want to point out, well, first of all, I do want to just give a little bit more love to that unused GoldenEye concept poster. Holy crap, it's awesome. If it wouldn't ruin my book, I'd be like, I would take this out of this book and frame this. It's so awesome. But the other thing that I really noticed, I really, really dig the Japanese posters from the 60s and 70s. The Japanese posters, yes, they are collage vomit, but whoever was putting them together did a damn good job, because all of them seem to be, yes, there's action everywhere. They've got a ton of stuff. They've got huge James Bond head right in the middle and everything like this, but they're so well put together that it doesn't end up assaulting the senses. It actually looks really cool. Now, somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s, they started going pretty lame with their posters, and they stopped being as cool, but some of those 60s and 70s Bond movie posters from Japan are pretty damn cool. The other thing I noticed, which I just thought was really interesting, was the fact that in many of the Japanese posters, like if you look at the Japanese posters on page 60 and 61 for Goldfinger, you notice that they've almost gone out of their way to accentuate Connery's roundness of eyes in these Japanese posters to be like, hey, look, this is a Western guy. It's very, very pointed out. But then later on, there's an Indian poster in which they go to great lengths to make James Bond look Indian. And it's such a difference to me that in the one country, they're like, want to point out the difference. Like, look at this guy. He's not one of us. Whereas in another part of the world, they're like, we want to make it appear as though he's as close to us as possible. And then when they see the movie, obviously they'll be like, hey, wait a minute. But
and speaking of, going back to the Japanese posters on 60 and 61 for Goldfinger, especially the one in 61, I noticed that the quote-unquote tear, the artistic, rip of white, they go out of their way to not cover up the Golden Girl's butt.
Yes.
In fact, if you look at the proportions on her, they actually stretched her out so you could still see her butt. So this is very much the opposite of the American-style censorship. And if you look at the Japanese 2 sheet, she's completely uncensored. So just very, very interesting cultural commentary in these posters.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's a very cool, like I said, it's mostly pictures, but there is a little bit of reading, and it is very interesting reading when you get to it. So, again, we highly, highly recommend this book if you can get a hold of it. Like I said, we're going to have the link directly to the Amazon page for this book. Hopefully there's still enough copies out there that you can get your hands on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, give it a look, and after you've looked through the book, let us know what you think, or if you've followed along with us at all, thought we missed something that you particularly liked, or thought we derated something that you thought was particularly awesome, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on the web at hermajestiespod.com. Mm-hmm. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/hermajestiespod. You can find us on Twitter at hermajestiespod. You can find me on Twitter at cinemaotr. You can also email me directly at ziggy@cinemaontherocks.com.
And you can find me on the web. I'm on Twitter at Eric J. Dewey. I'm also on, you can email me, eric@hermajestiespod.com. Works just nicely. So yeah, drop us a line. Let us know if we missed your favorite poster or if we made fun of your favorite poster. You can berate us. We'll accept it. But please do contact us. We like to interact with you guys who are listening to the show. We love it when we get messages on our Facebook page. We love it when we get tweets. We love it when we get emails and comments on the posts on the website. So we make it as easy as possible for you to get a hold of us. So please do so, and we'll definitely listen and respond.
Absolutely. We can't do this show without you. It's because of you that we're one of the most successful shows on the network, so thank you very much for being here. Thank you. And thank you very much for hanging out with us for this episode of Her Majesty's Secret Podcast, wherein we discuss the best and worst of the James Bond posters. Her Majesty's Secret Podcast will return in 2 weeks, wherein we will be going back to the literary realm, and we will be discussing Ian Fleming's Spectre trilogy. Yeah. So we will be discussing the Ian Fleming novels Thunderball, and On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and You Only Live Twice. So you've got that to look forward to.
Oh, yeah.
In the meantime, I'm Ziggy Berkeley.
And I'm Eric Dewey.
And you have been listening to Her Majesty's Secret Podcast, only on The Fern. But wait, there's more. If you're interested in winning your own copy of the book that we've been talking about throughout this entire episode, there's a way you can do that, thanks to our Dial-A-Henchman contest. Want to know more? Go to hermajestiespod.com/contest and learn the details. We'll be running this contest through April 18th, 2014. So go to the site, find out what you have to do, and get those entries in. We're looking forward to giving you a copy of the book we've been talking about this entire episode. Meanwhile, we will see you again on our next episode of Her Majesty's Secret Podcast.
Kyle here. If you're like me, then you want all your shows in one spot, or a lot of shows in the same place, or better yet, some really great podcasts all on one network. Visit 4eyeradio.com for all the best shows featured on Blog Talk Radio, Stitcher, iTunes, Mixcloud, and more. 4-Eyed Radio Network, The Fern.